we were going to do. Okay. Right, gotta drop the capture real quick so everyone can see the Mike Gapes technical difficulties image.
Oh yeah, I know what I need to do. I need to get up the chat so that I can.
Yeah. Hold on. Do you guys want me to drop a link in the thing?
I've just seen it in the Twitter notifications.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know though. This is intended for mature audiences. I think I better go and consult my folks.
Right, got it up now.
Yeah, like I do the intended for mature audiences things, basically to cover my ass because I never know what people are going to say on here. Like,
because fucking advert going on.
Yeah, that'll happen. I just mute the tab.
I just muted it. Okay,
yeah.
I got it.
Also, I need to, on that note, actually have the thing up for other reasons, so I can make sure it's not broken. Okay, it's not broken. Good. All right. If you're here, you should say hi now, because otherwise we're just gonna go, and I won't do any of the cool introduction stuff, which is everyone's favorite bit of the stream. That's what everyone's here for. Arskeen here, Mark's here. All right, I'm sold. Arskeen is here. That's all I need. I do actually know Arskeen, by the way. That's not me just like picking on one of my viewers. I do know him. AFK.
Oh, it's doing the weird thing again.
Oh yeah, POV Jack happening again. Right, hold on, everyone. I'm gonna do a little bit of housekeeping, which is I have enabled the asking the question function, so you simply click on the golden coin with Tony Blair's face on it, you click on ask a question, and you ask, for example, you ask that question, for example, and the answer is you get it at my merch store. So you two can visit Lice/Gapes. Otherwise, you know why we're here. It's the book we've all been waiting for. It's the most important book. It's the most important book that has ever been released.
Where are we?
We're reviewing Change, the Independent Group, which is the real title of this actual book that I had to read. And I'm lucky because I'm joined by two veteran experts in the field of the Independent Group and Mike Gapes. Friends of the stream, Jack and Geraint, who can introduce themselves. You will probably know who they are, but they can introduce themselves now if they like.
Hello, I'm Jack Frayne Reed. I'm a public intellectual. I'm one of the hosts of the Reel Politik podcast, the voice of Mike Gapes in Gapecast, of which I'm the co-creator, which will be very important in this forthcoming stream.
Yep.
And also I am a writer, including for New Socialist, and I record music under the moniker Crazy Moose. I'm considering changing it. And I'm really tired. I'm just putting that out there at the start. So I'm going to give this my all, but I am really kind of tripping. I'm so tired.
Hello, I'm Geraint. I'm one of the other hosts of the Reel Politik podcast. We're taking over Sinan's stream yet again. I'm also always up for any chance to dunk on the Change UK crew. And I do the podcast. I don't do anything like the Ranger stuff Jack does other than that, unfortunately. I would also like, you can follow me on Twitter at Wariotifo if you don't already. And I would like to apologise for using the picture of DDP, the wrestler, as my display picture, because he has today endorsed Brian Rose, the crank anti-lockdown candidate for London mayor, implausibly.
Well,
no. You've got to refer to him
incredible
correctly.
heel turn.
The piss candidate. He's the piss drinking candidate, Brian.
He is
Rose.
literally a piss drinking
that
candidate.
guy who drinks piss. Yeah. No, so
Like-
that's usually the Lib Dems. I mean, he's parking his tanks on their lawn.
Yeah,
I've always said we don't need no government cramping our style. You give them an inch, they'll take a mile.
And also, I would like to point out that Brian Rose is also one of the many YouTubers running for London Mayor, and there's a very funny video of him talking to a Chinese jerking off expert. So don't watch that after the stream, but that's a real video that exists, and it's fucking amazing. What's less amazing is this book. I I don't know if we want to just dive in and go through it page by page and just tear these people apart, or do we want to give like a quick summary of how awful this book is?
Quick? How are we gonna do quick?
That's true.
I am probably going to fall asleep at some point in this stream, probably during when we're talking about one of the Anne Coffey bits or the Anna Subri sections that I just went through. And literally, most of them I was like highlighting stuff, but Subri's all went on for like 5 fucking pages, so I just wrote across all the pages piss nonsense.
Yeah, if I had to give one note, too much Subri, not enough Gapes. That is...
Yeah, Chris Leslie's really boring as well, but he's got like some gripes and bitching, which is kind of fun.
Yeah, at least that's fun, yeah. Should we just dive in then?
Yeah.
I've got the ebook up, so everyone's gonna need to bear with me. Also, I think it's worth noting that like they have the introduction and then they have the bit with our values, and they immediately
Our values are under attack. Tim Heidecker on Cinema Heads.
Everyone, who knew that the independent group had values before reading this book? I don't think I did.
That's all they have, you know. They're not ideological. They don't have an ideology. They're just all about values and evidence-based solutions.
Yeah, that comes up, the evidence-based bit of it. Is Chuka in it? Chuka is referred to, definitely, and not necessarily in a positive way. Also, thank you for watching this at 4 a.m. in Australia. Damn, that's how powerful the pull of Mike Gapes is.
Mike Gapes on the pull. That's a frightening prospect.
Okay, I want to go through the values that they have, because they're just kind of... I've got notes for them. So, we believe ours is a great country of which people are rightly proud, where the first duty of government must be to defend its people and do whatever it takes to safeguard Britain's national security. And I wrote here, I must have been reading this quite late at night, big centrist populism klaxon going off in my flat, waking up my partner, implying that I was reading this quite late. So we're already off to that's going to be recurring, by the way. National security is a thing they're really upset about.
I noticed that in their little thing, before there are values statement, it just says the independent group of MPs. So that's their leaving Labour statement. And literally, there's one little paragraph about like how they're leaving, and then like that's like 3 lines, and then immediately Labour now pursues policies that would weaken our national security, accept the narrative of states hostile to our country. You know what I mean? Russia.
Yeah, they call out Russia by name. Several times.
Pretty into Russia, yeah. Not into hating Russia. And then there's 2 other bits that I've just linked and written war. They're talking about how it's passive in circumstances of international humanitarian distress. Okay, they don't want to bomb people. And Chris Leslie sort of reiterates that later. And then finally, what will be an abiding theme of the book, they are very opposed to the Labour Party under Jeremy Corbyn's economic policy. From a right, of course. And yes, they believe that Labour's economic agenda, again, under Corbyn, because who knows if that's the party's economic agenda anymore, would destabilise the British economy in pursuit of ideological objectives. Again, because, of course, CUK don't have ideology.
Yeah. None of this is ideological. One of the things I will say, like, most of their values are literally just meaningless word salad. And I'm going to read one of them out, and you can tell me which leader of going into an election wanted this. The people of this country have the ability to create fairer, more prosperous communities for present and future generations. We believe that this creativity is best realised in a society which fosters individual freedom and supports all families. Which leader of a major party went into an election with policies that would have met that?
Yeah, I reckon Gavin Shuker added that bit about family values, if you know what I mean. Yeah, fluoride in the water, I'm telling you, watch that stuff, okay?
There was also another one, which which was I'm not going to read the one that I sent to John Duncan to troll him. I'll read another one. As part of the global community, we have a responsibility to future generations to protect our environment, safeguard the planet, plan development sustainably, and to act on the urgency of climate change. And so they want a somewhat planned economy to protect the environment. I don't know which party leader could have offered us a path to have that. Who knows? Who could say? Who knows what his name is? Is it Jiminy Cribbins? Who could say?
No, it's not Chukwuemeka for unspecified reasons. Yeah, I mean, I went through this our values statement, and I just basically highlighted not sentences, but just phrases. So I noticed market economy, national security, balanced economy. As in, like, plenty of capitalism in there, if you know what I mean. Maybe balanced in favor of one over the other, if you know what I mean. Individuals, individual freedom, individuals, individuals, extension of opportunity, individuals, responsibility, opportunities, contribution to society, free media, the rule of law. Then there's a bit which Chris Leslie obviously wrote about how we believe that our parliamentary democracy, not the members of the Labour Party whom Chris Leslie hates, is good. And then following that, challenges, globalization and migration and technological advances, the usual spiel about why people's jobs need to go. Multilateral international rules-based order. There's that rules-based order. And then European, and then the big things, trade, regulation, defense, security, and counter-terrorism. And then there's a bit about climate change, which is like less than 4 lines long. And then power should be devolved to the most appropriate level.
Meaning us.
Meaning us, yeah, exactly. Our mates, like Chris Leslie and his wife in Nottingham, Mike Gapes and the Gape Goons in Ilford South, etc.
Yeah, hold on. Person in the room, you type very loudly and it's getting picked up by my mic. Could you not type so like that loud? Sorry, mate. Yeah, just addressing loud
sure
typing.
That's not right.
No, I'm sure, because I can hear it through my headphones.
Once I'm not typing, I'm leaving my
I just saw the video that someone...
loud mechanical keyboard alone.
I just saw the video that someone posted in the chat. Oh my god, Keith punching a punching bag is the best thing I've ever seen. Thank you to him for that.
Why? No, it's not. It's not. It's just a photo op for Keir Starmer. Don't indulge it. Don't spread that man's propaganda.
But, okay, so...
Maybe take the video and like do some Gape shit on. I don't know, something with it that debases and humiliates him. But
put a picture of a Deliveroo rider on the punch bag.
Yeah, good one. Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, don't share that shit. But don't spread. Let's not spread right-wing propaganda, folks.
That's right. Let's not do it.
Not platform extremism.
Yeah. I do like this sentence here. Although they did not achieve their aspiration, a new party that would lead a change in British politics, they did show that there was a huge appetite for change. People were looking for something new, something different. And I'm like, did they? What the fuck did they do for that? Like...
The conclusion they draw for that, though, they're like, oh, it's the appetite for something new, something different. But it has to start with people, like an acknowledgement that you don't get anywhere else in the book. Like, oh yeah, that's where we fucked up.
So they have to start with people.
I kind of like the flex where they're like, they had more followers than momentums on Twitter, and I'm like, I thought Twitter wasn't real life. Like,
bullshit. I don't believe that. I think that's made up. Like, I don't care. So you may come at me, but you can prove anything with facts. I think follows.
Most of Momentum's followers on Twitter would probably have been Momentum members at some point or done a little bit of activism, in many cases quite a lot. Change UK, okay, every journalist followed them, every centrist followed them, but most of them were like members of the Lib Dems or stayed in Labour on the Labour right, or just were doing it, following them to try and somehow own Momentum, and it didn't mean anything.
And I think
perfect example of Twitter not actually being inherently like important.
Sarah from RP and Leftover is correct in the chat, I think, when she says that bots are involved. I think that a lot of those so-called numbers were not real people, not authentic accounts. They were just Gape goons.
Also, I enjoy Psychic Fromage's question, does it read like George Bush Sr.'s memoir from The Simpsons? It's more embarrassing. It's genuinely a more embarrassing... It's terribly formatted in places. I'm going to complain about
there's
a
loads
lot of stuff.
Errors and shit, like misplaced apostrophes and shit. Just on Geraint's point about how like every fucking journalist would have been following them. They were so like dependent on the mainstream media. Like there's like stories of Chris Leslie like literally calling up Laura Koonsberg and like begging, like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I know it's a school night, but can you leak this?" The story that we're going to leave the party, basically. He called her up and just like, it's just so like, that's someone debasing themselves, Chris Leslie, like in the years after the 2017 election, because he's just straight up like, after the 2017 election, it became clear to me that Corbyn could do it again, and possibly even better. And I still think he could have done.
And I'm like, we know. That was why we understand that was why you did what you did. Like,
exactly.
There's a whole lot of them being like, look, while this issue was very important, I was really pissed off about this other issue. They keep, like, refusing to take the, like, win and just constantly try and drive their point harder when they don't need to. But that's, like, a bit later in the book. There's also this bit where the author, who's Anne Coffey, basically insists that...
totally Anne Coffey.
Yeah, it's Anne Coffey, let's be real. It was just edited by the person on the cover, saying the appetite is still there, the opportunity to create change is still there, and I'm like, what change? And like, there must not have been much appetite for it if Mike Gapes was your most successful candidate at the 2019 general election.
Well, exactly, but also Peter McNabb doesn't exist. I'm just throwing that out there. He didn't edit the book. Anne Coffey edited the book.
Which reflects poorly on her, I reckon, at this point.
The majority of Anne Coffey's sections under her own name, pretty short, it feels like she put most of her energy into this project in an editorial capacity. So... props to Anne for not wanting to hog the limelight with this New York Times bestseller. I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure it's rocketing up the sales chart. I'm pretty sure I bought it and it jumped like 2,000 places because it was so low down. So
really, because like a bunch. I guess this is how like fucking marginalized the left is getting to be. It's just like a fucking like 20 of us who want to laugh at Mike Gapes and all that podcasts. Like I saw like people posting. Like I saw Alex Doherty from Politics Theory Other, like a venerable left intellectual, posting a picture of his copy. Like maybe it is just like a handful of people on the left who are buying it to laugh at Mike Gapes.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so, because otherwise it's not a good sign.
Don't know. There's like a huge endorsement on the back though.
Oh yeah, I don't have the physical.
A big heavyweight. Oh yeah, no, it says the actions of the 5 members of parliament are a challenge to a party system which, instead of protecting against extremism, can become the vehicle for it. And that endorsement is from Peter Anne Coffey McNabb, the supposed editor of this book.
Yeah, God, we think Anne Coffey wrote it. All right, everyone. Like, I don't think we could be any clearer about what we think has gone on. There's
You're right. You advanced this theory, didn't you? Sorry,
which was that? Sorry, which one?
You advanced the Anne Coffey theory as well, didn't you? I just want to get everyone in on this.
I believe so. Yeah, let me just check. Sorry, just jumping around this fucking ebook.
He's gonna check his list of things that he's...
Seriously, do I forget who killed JFK? No, I don't. It's Mike Gapes. Like,
that's right.
No, the ebook, the copyright page at the end of it just has all rights reserved, copyright and Coffey 2021.
Yeah, that's how I figured it out.
Copyright to Anne Coffey, the right of Anne Coffey to be identified, etc., etc. But like, in theory, there's 6 of them, and if they're going to credit it to one person, it would make sense for it to be this alleged editor. But No, it's just Anne Coffey.
Yeah,
So I
just say
think she's probably
copyright
the
Anne
one
Coffey.
that's done the running on putting the project together.
Yeah.
Obviously, the first section of the book, which we'll come to in a second, is like
Identified
5.
as the author of this work.
Yeah.
Has been inserted, blah, blah, blah. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so this shit gets deeper by the minute.
This has just reminded me that Chris Leslie was a Labour MP in the city I live in, so that made me sad again.
Do you think Peter McNab is a nom de plume inspired by like Andy McNab?
Yes,
Oh.
I think the specific choice of name probably came from Gapes. He seems like he'd like all these sort of all action military daring do type tales.
Oh man, yeah. There's a lot of Gapes. Not enough Gapes, but there's a lot more than we usually get
so
to
much
see from him.
Fair play to him. He makes it count. He makes his pages
Gates'
count.
bio is fucking amazing.
Yes,
like,
it's so
like
good.
It's like 50 times longer than everyone else's fucking like little mini memoir.
In fairness, he's an eternal being, so he had to like he has quite a lot of material to go off. He couldn't really talk about his time being a Viking in Sardinia, so that had to be cut from the final version of the book. But I also I'm just gonna offer a gripe here, which is that Jeremy Corbyn was elected as Labour leader, which is where our story really begins. And my note here is then start the story there. Every single one of these books I read, they refuse to start the story where they say the story starts, and it just pisses. And like, this is like me having to proofread shit brain coming out, where I'm like, just start where you think it starts.
Actually, I'm going to respectfully disagree here because I think I totally agree with the historical approach taken by this book, which is that history as we know it, time as we know it even, began in 1992 when Michael John Gapes and, of course, Anne Coffey were first elected to Parliament. That comes after. It might be useful to have some background and contextualizing. In 1992, so that basically everything here is framed as being kind of like the modernizing project of the 90s is Grand Last Gap. Gasp, not gap, gape.
Gape, yeah.
Gape. Fuck that up.
Brad Pitt starring as Mike Gapes, for goodness sake. Can we not lave a terrible movie out of this? Because I don't want to have to watch it on stream with everyone.
I guess, like, is there anything else in their fucking intro that's like?
There is the bit about the EHRC report where they just wildly misread the situation.
Oh, that's bullshit. Yeah, I literally just highlighted Mike Gapes' name the first time it comes up. I just high as shit, like, yeah, Mike Gapes.
That's right. We see that Mike Gapes right there.
I've like I wrote PG post Gapes. I think I was trying to like come up with an ADBC kind of thing for like.
But we can't pinpoint the exact age of Gapes, therefore we can't have like a post Gapes based.
That's true. Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah, so yeah, like he says this weird shit like, whilst I am not superstitious, I sometimes find coincidences a bit spooky. Anne Coffey says, and then immediately cut to the EHRC report coming out. Like, is it the date? Like, what is it? The 29th of October 2020? What's that about?
I was reading, I'm on the Anne Coffey section of it now, like, and I'm just looking at it and I'm like, man, she melted super hard. Like,
wait, do you mean the Anne Coffey section or the introduction?
No, I mean the actual section.
Okay.
Yeah. The actual biography.
This is confusing because she is.
That I've made that.
Yeah. Hold on. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. There it is. Yeah. But yeah, she is definitely the author of the book. Anyway, it was made very clear in the copyright section.
We're already getting like serious Anne Coffey truther shit going.
I'm not even convinced Anne Coffey is real, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think she. Like, I don't understand how such a non-entity could be an MP for so long, and yet she was. So
Anne Coffey, Mike Gapes. Yeah, all right, come on, whatever. Like, pull the other one.
Yeah, like Mike Gapes, I could kind of take because like it's such a like.
Take Gapes.
But But yeah, turns out her dad was a Tory, which perhaps explains why she was a Tory later in life.
Zing.
There you go. That was literally my note. I wrote these really late. Like, I'm very obviously tired when I'm writing these. So because I'm like pissed off when I write these. So
he was proud that he'd got on. He saw the Tories as supporting people like himself who got on. Then Anne Coffey became left wing briefly.
Yeah.
And as all incredibly right-wing people seem to for a time.
I would also like to say that she was vice president of the Students' Union, which explains the melting quite some... Yeah, there you go.
Oh my god, this is an amazing, like, I'm a fucking weirdo who is just a fucking... my main takeaway from this book is, like, these people are fucking freaks. Like, Jesus Christ, they are aliens. So, just like, here, just potted highlights from this paragraph about, like, Anne Coffey's fucking, like, career in Parliament. I've had a very interesting parliamentary career. Citation needed. And particularly the years Labour Party was in power, you know, about blah, 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 thing power. She's talking about how she worked for Alistair Darling. She says, Alistair's book, Back from the Brink, has been described as a heck of a good read.
Unlike this book.
Yeah. And she was privileged to sit in on some remarkably interesting meetings. Yeah, I'm sure. Just as interesting as her very interesting parliamentary career. Anyway, Alistair Campbell, no, not Campbell, everyone hates him, Darling, was well respected by everyone. Everyone loved him because he took difficult decisions in the public interest and had integrity. So just so weird, just...
Deeply strange people. Yeah, I basically didn't highlight most of her chapter because I'm like, I don't fucking care.
It's the
Like,
single most boring part of the entire book. Like,
Yeah.
the five of them all have their distinct characters and quirks, and hers is just that she has nothing to add.
like, the one interesting thing she has to say is she's like, oh man, I'm so upset that, like, councils can't do provision of services. And I'm like, yeah, damn, if only someone would have fixed that. I don't, like...
She goes on about grooming gangs, like, 4 pages. I guess.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know. So it includes the sentence to give Theresa May her credit. I didn't see the sentence to give Jeremy Corbyn his credit anywhere in this book, I don't think.
I saw the nicest thing that's said about Jeremy Corbyn is said by Joan Ryan, actually.
Yeah, and then
she
she
says, like,
a Nazi.
Yeah, she says, like, I've had many amiable and, fine dealings with Jeremy Corbyn because he's a North London MP and I had to work with him. But also, I think he's the biggest, danger in the history of the world. So who's to say, like...
Yeah, can we just skip the Soubs thing? Because, like, it is
No, fuck that. I'm not interested. Her story is, like, profoundly uninteresting because she is just, like, a typical Tory.
Yeah.
It's just, it does start off pretty funny. It's a picture of her at a Remain rally then. My mother worked pretty much all her life in Doncaster. In the 1960s, she came across a young doctor who had come over from Uganda. And it's just, everything she says in this book is just this rambling anecdote.
Yeah, like,
shit.
Her bit about her mum is, like, a sort of praising of tolerance, which, fine, I guess it's not... a thing I don't particularly enjoy that as a political framing, but whatever. It's her section of the book. She can write what she likes.
Her first paragraph is, bloody hell, go chum, have some champagne. You know I'm not a racist.
There is one interesting bit here, actually, where she's like, when she voted for equal marriage, she was in the same lobby as Labour Sensibles. Does that mean Jeremy Corbyn and John McDonnell are Labour Sensibles? Because famously,
they were voting. They were like trying to amend it to like pass really, really strict restrictions on everything. They are the most homophobic guys in Parliament.
I mean,
because of Iran.
Yeah, that's going to come up.
Iran!
Oh yeah, it's like the full Rose Gallery on display. This is actually kind of... It's fun. It would be fun if it wasn't so fucking terrible.
Ryan, what have you been trying to say? Sorry.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
a couple of things that stood out about this that kind of track throughout Anna Subri's contributions to the entire book. Firstly, I'm absolutely convinced that rather than her writing it down and emailing it to the editor, is that either Mr. McNabb or Anne Coffey just sat her down in a wine bar with a tape recorder running. It's got that vibe to it of just kind of rambling and trying to edit it into something coherent. And also, like, every single I think literally every single contribution, but certainly most of them, have her highlighting unprovoked either an anecdote that shows she's not racist or an anecdote that shows she's not homophobic, or both. She's really, really, really desperate to impress that on us.
Also, just like these weird boasts, like, I learned something about myself. I've got a peculiar mind. I've got a semi-photographic memory. I'm one of those people who has to see things in my head to understand something. Is that what that is?
A semi-photographic memory is just having a good memory. Surely.
Yeah, right.
I've got a semi-photographic memory.
Yeah, like,
apparently.
Some images. Yeah.
When I've not had several pints, I have a semi-photographic memory. Everyone, you heard it here first.
And then she starts saying real people in the real world every 2 fucking sentences.
Her thing with like, I got fed up with politics and I didn't like the Tory party anymore because they were too right-wing under Ian Duncan Smith, so I left. And then her story of like why she rejoined is like, yes, I saw one single interview where someone was talking about drugs and crime, talking lots of sense. I remember this interview very clearly, and at the conclusion I thought, I don't know who that is, but whoever it is, my God, he's talking sense. And it was Oliver Letwin.
Oh, fucking God.
But he's got opinions on drugs and crime.
I like how everyone guessed
I've had enough of this. I'm going to rejoin the Conservative Party. Is there an exact reaction to Oliver Letwin?
Like, you know, there's these black discos that are causing crime, which is stuff that he did fucking write in a big report for Margaret Thatcher in the 80s.
Keeps being racist and
those,
it's an accident.
Yeah,
and those are specific issues that she highlighted his views on.
There's this thing where Anna Subri's like, man, I don't understand how the Tory party became so anti-immigrant. And I'm like, what? How do you not... It's really... Who could possibly say how that happened? You know,
here's some real like alien just landed on Earth shit from Anna Subri. The SDP had been formed, but I decided not to join them. This is important to me because it shows what I believe in and have always believed in. My political beliefs are important to me, and I am not afraid of saying I'm sorry, but I don't want to be involved in this thing anymore. It's just like that fucking free-spirited P guy, that weird Tory activist who had a fucking blog called centristdad.com where he wrote shit like, I am a Tory and a conservative. I am a centrist and a Tory. It's just like fucking drivel.
Geraint, did you want to add anything before we move on to the second most important figure in this book?
I think it's time to move on. I think to get to the, not quite the meat, but the main support act, if you like.
Yeah.
Oh wait, no, sorry.
He's the main support. Yeah, this is the guy before the main guy. It's MP for near me, former MP for nearby me, too near, and former member of my CLP that I'm also a former member of. Piss Leslie, everyone! It's time. And the photo is of him talking to a meeting of supporters in Nottingham in April 2019. And I'm like, I think all of these people are fucking.
Yeah, you were there.
I was there on the cover because I was there. I was like, Chris, yes, tell me more about how better things aren't possible and why you only appeared in the city when you were about to defect. Because he was literally never here. Literally,
he's usually in the city as in of London. He's talking to like fucking capitalist fucking pricks.
Yeah,
like
never in Nottingham. Never set foot in the city.
You start to get like the abiding themes of Chris Leslie thought in this, like, which is that, like Anna Subri, she's got this big bit about how she like met the Tory members and like, to be honest, understandably, she was like, fucking hell, these people are horrible, they're freaks. I don't have anything in common with these people. And Chris Leslie is totally like that with the Labour membership. Like, he hates them.
Yeah,
like he doesn't think they should have any say in anything.
One of the funniest bits is right at the start where he skipped school to try and own some fucking Tory minister. and he just asks him a question and the Tory minister ignores him, and it's like, I fucking showed him!
Yeah.
I got him! Like...
Yeah. Well, hang on, let me get into just opposing the government and opposing the Conservatives. I'm afraid it's the hard left who they want to tighten their control. They want to sideline moderate voices. I'm afraid it's the hard left who are the hard left, Chris? Well, we know who the hard left are. They want to... fuck the order.
Yeah. I was going to say, I've listened to it enough to know it. Like...
Dissent. Have I got the Dissent?
Yeah.
The National...
You said
anyway,
we were too right-wing.
Printing money, nationalise it. You just said we were too right-wing.
I mean...
This is what I wanted to do. I decided it would be worth walking around for a while, and after this MP passed through the VHS store, I managed to stand in front of him. Quite confident for a teenager, he writes with a little exclamation mark, and said,
Right.
My school roof is held up with chicken wire to stop it falling on our heads. What are you going to do about that? Looking
Cut the
back...
chicken wire.
Yeah.
This is like how Chris... This is his hilarious punchline of the story. It's like when fucking Keir Starmer told that hilarious stand-up routine about going into the wrong hotel room. He's like, looking back, it must have been quite a strange thing for him to encounter. Anyway, then he says he about to get into this politics business. And at the time, Chris Leslie was... I don't know if he was the youngest MP ever, but he was the youngest MP in the House. And at the time, and there's a bit of TV news footage from the time that shows him as a very young MP, like 24 years old, and he says how like he didn't know whether he wanted to join Labour or the Conservatives. It just seems how basically like he just went with Labour because it looked like they were going to win under Tony Blair.
Also, does anyone want to guess in the chat what Chris Leslie's degree was in? What was his degree in? You will not need many guesses.
Being a wanker.
Sorry? Basically, yes. The person in the room got it immediately. Yeah, people saying PPE, you've basically got it right. And I will let piss is also an acceptable answer. His politics and parliamentary studies at Leeds University. F's in the chat for Leeds University because he is one of your alumni. Too bad for you.
He like attempts to destroy Bernie Sanders' left-wing credibility by revealing that he used to work for him when he was a congressman.
I actually want to read that section out because it's fucking insane. I ended up working for then Congressman Bernie Sanders, which will probably surprise quite a few on the left, but Bernie was an American progressive, not an anti-West Marxist who understood the importance of national security, didn't for a minute entertain anti-Semitism, and who loved this country. I mean, what the... And first of all, didn't Bernie Sanders get in trouble for attending a Sandinista rally where they said, like, kill the Yankee? That heavily implies that he's anti-West in some fashion.
Well, yeah, I mean, Chris Leslie just anything for a shot against Corbyn. Mike Gapes hates Bernie Sanders. He's entirely consistent on this stuff.
Actually, Mike Gapes' insight about Bernie Sanders and how it related to Jeremy Corbyn was the best insight in the entire book. Because he's like, well, I guess it's kind of the same thing. And I'm like, oh, yeah, kinda. You kind of got it there, Gapes.
Yeah. He's like, they are going for this elderly white man. Why not Gapes? He is elderly. He is white. Why do they not flock to the Gapes? It's like, you do flock to the Gapes, Mike.
We'll get to that, because there are some weird parallels between Mike Gapes and Jeremy Corbyn's early life that I'm like, he really is like the anti-Corbyn in almost every way.
Oh yeah, I've highlighted all the good bits in the Gapes chapter for when. But
yeah, that's pretty much Piss Leslie done. Oh, we got Joan Ryan. Fuck. Before we get to
Joan Ryan's is fucking. Actually, it's really horrible. She's an awful person. I think we should talk about her and save the best for last. But the longest for last as well. Like Gapes took up so fucking much. It's like its own section of the book. But like, just Chris Leslie just like throws out a bit of shit as well about how Labour was seen as wasting taxpayers' money. It's all the taxpayer, not like the worker or anything with these guys. And he also says that he picked up a fairly Atlanticist attitude in his global outlook, or fairly...
Understatement, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Moderate in all things, except that, maybe.
Yeah, it just loads of shit about how great Tony Blair is, and then pretty much a little shot at local Labour Party activists, and people like Corbyn, I presume, who played to the gallery of them. But
basically Chris Leslie is pretty boring, but there are like little bits of him being a massive dipshit that are kind of fun. Joan Ryan is just fucking grim. Should we tackle Joan Ryan? The picture of her, I'm not kidding, holding a giant poppy. Respect. I'm not even fucking joking.
Like the poppy's almost as big as she is. Like it's huge.
Daddy Poppy.
There's so much respect in that photo.
I can't fucking. Maximum respect right there.
I'm saluting the photo. I don't want to, but like. You
simply must.
Yeah. My ancient lizard brain is like forcing me to as an involuntary response.
Yeah. So you get the sense of how this is going to play out in her section. Basically, her early life is fucking boring, and she was a teacher. I feel bad for those kids.
She talks about like conflict resolution, which you should certainly see a lot of conflict resolution from Labour Friends of Israel. And then the next paragraph she drops off, like, she worked for a time as an oral historian at the Imperial War Museum. You're like,
she was on the side of Imperial War. She was the one who was the pro-Imperial War. Yeah.
She loves imperialism, she loves war. And then, like, within 2 fucking sentences, she's, like, linked, like, Labour under Corbyn to the Holocaust. Just thrown in a load of, like, heavy Holocaust shit, and then just straight up, like, it is truly shaming that the Labour Party, blah, 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 blah. Like, disgusting fucking shit, and then just, like, within that same paragraph, she's just on to, a vote for Corbyn could not only be a betrayal of the Jewish community. It would, like, just literally total instrumentalization of the Holocaust.
Also, very ahistorical understanding of what the Labour Party was and is. One of my notes on, like, a bit that Joan Ryan puts in the book is she needs to learn what the definition of the word institutional is, because she clearly doesn't fucking know. Or she does know, and she's a fucking liar.
Institutions, what Change UK was not, never became.
And then there's this bit here where she's basically saying that she campaigned to cut aid to the Palestinian Authority, which, because she's a piece of shit, basically. To put it in the lightest possible terms, she is a bad person.
Absolute piece of shit. Yeah, chair of Labour Friends of Israel from 2015 to 19. Yeah, she basically got funds withdrawn from Palestinian Authority. She worked with the Alliance for Middle East Peace, which I bet is some fucking State Department front bullshit, to promote the establishment of an international fund for Israeli Palestinian peace, which certainly sounds like a alleged embezzlement operation, possibly, potentially, in a hypothetical situation.
Yeah. She also mentions that she was re-elected in 2017 with an increased majority. Declines to mention who that was thanks to.
No, it was the Ryan effect.
Yeah. Everyone was like, you know who I want to vote for? This disgusting anti-Palestinian racist. That's who I want to vote for.
Ryan personal vote is strong.
Yeah, many people are saying it. Yeah. Oh yeah, you're going to see the personal vote thing come up a lot. Mike Gapes is very particular about what his personal vote is.
Gapes has great personal vote stuff, and also, a fucking awesome bit about Palestine and how great he is on Palestine.
He talks about Kurdish people, and he's like, yes, this Kurdish party are like the Democratic Party, and I'm like, oh, really, Mike? But here we are. We're on to the good stuff, everyone. Get your Gapes emotes going if you've got them. Mike Gapes, MP for Ilford South. His picture is of him at the NATO Parliamentary Assembly in Tirana.
Let's get that back up, because I was mostly trying to show the milk that I wrote in highlighter. There you go. Look,
gonna drop the Gapes emotes for you all.
NATO shebang. No, it's not even NATO. It's like losers who fuck NATO. That kind of shit.
Yeah, that's basically what this is. And there you go.
Yeah, Gapes.
Got the Gapeses going in the chat. All right. I like how he opens with, like, I collected stamps from an early age.
Wait, so
Incredible.
that thing that I
Incredible.
said that a State Department front does seem to be basically a State Department front. No evidence on the embezzling stuff. The embezzlement stuff I'm working on. Watch out, the scoop's coming.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Gapes thing. So I guess I better do some reading.
That's right. This is where Jack coming on the stream pays off for us all.
I've got all the best bits highlighted, so let's go from the very top. Not as in read all of it, but let's start at the start. I was always very interested in other countries. I collected stamps from an early age. Right in there, he's got you hooked. Like, he likes other countries. He likes stamps. He likes geography and history. His dad he refers to here as Frank, but you out there might know him as the Tragedy of Austria. He was a quiet, thoughtful man, naturally after what happened to him. But he talked to Gapes about politics a lot. His mum was called Sis, apparently, brackets Emily. Anyway, I have fond memories of climbing the big oak tree at the bottom of our garden.
Oh man! Imagine Mike Gapes trying to climb a tree is
because when he was even younger than that, he planted the seed that grew from an acorn into a big tree.
He's actually playing around with time here. He's for dramatic effect mixing up different stages of his life, and he had fond memories of climbing the big oak tree and like.
Someone has suggested Gapecast stamp collection episode.
Oh yeah, I've corrected it here. He accidentally wrote, I decided to do a gap year. Obviously, that should say Gape year.
That's right.
I spent
Every year is Gape year.
I spent a year doing voluntary service overseas in the OAS. No, not in the OAS, the precursor organization to the CIA. Teaching classes of 57 and 48 at a rural mission school in Swaziland. I don't think that's what the OAS is. That's the Organization of American States. Anyway, that was also a CIA fucking State Department load of bullshit, so it doesn't matter. So anyway, he's doing his Gape year in Swaziland. A small, poor, recently independent landlocked country next to apartheid South Africa and Portuguese colonial Mozambique. Right, so then, yeah, Gape says he was very left-wing. He joined all the left-wing third worldist and anti-racist political societies.
Man, you wonder what happened to him. Oh wait, he actually says later what happened to him because he was involved in a very bad organization. Just like
joined National Organization of Labour Students (NOLS) after being elected onto the left slate, the executive of the Cambridge Student Union. So yeah, real already selling out. He was then elected as the founder convener of the Clause 4 group. We were left-wing democratic socialists, but we were not Trotskyists.
I made the note here that it's interesting how these people can always really hone in and get great resolution on ideologies when it's about them. But when it's anyone else, it's like, no, you're all communists, you're all Trots, you're all Stalinist Trots.
Russian
as if,
trolls,
yeah, you know, very interesting. Just my own note.
Yes, and also, there's some stuff about, like, just very boring sectarian, like, 70s student politics bullshit. I think we can skip that. Anyway.
I want to read out this section where he makes Jeremy Corbyn sound fucking amazing.
Well, not till then, and also shouldn't it be in the voice? Anyway, but just, like, he does talk about this. There's this great anecdote about when he was representing the Council of European National Youth Committees. Again, just boring, like, I held this position, I was the photocopy boy for this person. Very impressive. They didn't even have photocopies at the time. Then basically he drops this little fucking anecdote, which is pure Gapes. I learned a lot about politics internationally in the BYC and CENYC and CSNY. Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. I represented CSNY on the Presidium of the World Youth Festival in Havana, Cuba, in August 1978, where, much to the annoyance of the Soviets and Cubans, I almost single-handedly held up and toned down the final festival declaration.
Oh, fucking hell.
Mike.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, we really appreciate it. See, sometimes I debate having the drops on so people can just play thanks, Mike, so whenever we do like that, but I think it's better for the audio for us not
I
to.
think I'd find it distracting, yeah. I mean, but yeah, that's great. Just Gapes out there fucking interfering with Cuban politics on behalf of the CIA. Classic stuff.
Oh man. I like the bit where he lost badly in his first election. That was pretty funny.
Yeah, in Ilford North.
Yeah.
No, blames it on Labour's left-wing policies.
Yeah, but in contrast, the other guy, the bastard man, won his seat against an SDP splitter. So,
yeah.
Who can say whether it was Mike Gapes being a piece of shit that was the problem? Who could say?
Was that the bit you were going to read, Sinan? Because I just got to send a text 1 second.
Yeah, I don't want you to wear out the voice. So
no, it's cool.
Yeah, it was in contrast Jeremy Corbyn, that bit from there on, because he just makes this Jeremy Corbyn fella sound really cool.
He does indeed. Well, not hard. He's a cool guy.
Yeah.
Yes. So, then there's this stuff about how he was Neil Kinnock and his chief of staff, Charles Clark. Hey, right, Sinan? Yeah, friend of the show.
Friend of the show.
With a terrible son. Regarded me as one of the handful of people in the party head office that they could totally trust. That sucks when you can't trust people at the party head office. I'd hate to be a leader who had to deal with that.
Man, imagine that, eh?
Yeah. Then he basically says, although he was not a head of department, I was called over to advise on major speeches and debates, and sometimes held before Prime Minister's questions. I was in the trenches with Neil, fighting the Trots and working to make Labour re-electable. That's it, that fucking word. Long before Tony Blair benefited from what Neil Kinnock and John Smith had achieved in the previous years. I was very disappointed when Neil wasn't elected as a Prime Minister. So, years later, when I was asked, are you a Blairite or a Brownite? I would say, no, I'm a Kinnockite. I was always a Kinnockite.
He's always got a way to choose a third way somehow, hasn't he?
I know.
No matter how straightforward the question.
I was always a fucking loser.
Yeah, basically. But I just want to point out for people in chat, that was exactly as it was written in the book. There was nothing added. That is actually the text in the book. The trenches bit is real. That's all.
I should say, I've got a horrible cold, so I'm coughing not just because of the Gapes impression, but because of the Gapes impression combined with having the horrible cold.
I was aware of the cold, which is why I'm not forcing Jack to read every section of the Gapes bit in the voice. Well, hopefully not.
It's not you're not forcing me. It's a choice.
Yeah.
Just love that. Yeah, such an emotional fucking moment. Need to lighters aloft, need a candle in the wind playing. I was always a Kinnockite.
God, what a loser.
Yeah, then he's banging on about the Soviet Union, blah 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 blah. How he was a fly on the wall in many important meetings. Again, like Anne Coffey, she got to sit in on very important meetings.
She got to make the tea. Like Mike did. I presume
Gapes
Mike was bringing the milk.
Yeah, Gapes was just making milk. And then, Gapes is selected to be the candidate for Ilford South, and he gets into Parliament, but then Neil Kinnock doesn't become Prime Minister. I was personally elated, but shattered by Labour not winning overall, and Neil Kinnock not being Prime Minister. Before he left as leader, Neil Kinnock put me straight away onto the Foreign Affairs Select Committee. Like, just some evil shit from Neil Kinnock. Like, right, if I'm gonna go, I'm gonna inflict maximum damage on world peace by appointing Gapes to this influential position in British foreign policy.
I do kind of like how Gapes is this perfect mirror of Corbyn, though, because they're both, like, foreign policy heads, but, like, Gapes just does it for evil. And, like, you even see it in, like, the bit where he complains about Northern Ireland, where he's like, actually, Corbyn was with the bad group, and I was with the only good group. And I'm like, we'll see when we get there. But he's mad at Jeremy Corbyn and John McDonnell because they support the troops out movement, which, by the way, yes, British troops should be out. That seems fair enough to me.
About the troops out movement, he says, it was run by prominent far-left supporters of the Provisional IRA and was endorsed by some left Labour MPs, including Jeremy Corbyn and John McDonnell. I loved my 2 years in the Northern Ireland office team. They treated me like an extra minister. It's just like Gapes, like, they treated me like a prince, like a little Austrian prince, dressed in pantaloons, lederhosen,
Mike Gapes in the big sailor suit and a lollipop.
My little pigtail and my lollipop. Yeah, exactly.
Please, no one make that graphic. People have a habit of making these things into graphics. Don't make that one. I've suffered enough.
But he just loves, like, the cushy fucking all the benefits of being an MP, like the groupies and the Gape goons and shit.
I forget how long Gapes' bit is. Fucking hell, he takes up a lot of the real estate in this book, as he should.
Oh man, yeah, he's got this bit, so he's like talking about how I've been outspoken in Parliament against anti-Semitism. Then he talks about some stuff which he did do, like he introduced a private member's bill to make Holocaust denial a criminal offence. Then, of course, he goes to his membership of Labour Friends of Israel, which I wouldn't necessarily see as active anti-Semitism, but he also says he's been strongly critical of the Iranian regime, as he will continue to be.
Yeah.
Sorry,
go ahead.
I had also supported the anti-terrorism legislation introduced by Labour. So he voted for all the Islamophobic policies, don't worry.
He gets mad because he goes, that for my Islamist critics meant I was a Zionist Islamophobe in this earlier section. Yeah. And I'm like, Mike, that's not why people call you that. They call you that because you are a Zionist and an Islamophobe. You can kind of, I don't know what to tell you, man. Like,
I just want to, read that section. Like, he says... he sort of like he wants to emphasize that he sees both sides of the conflict, so he says that he's endorsed a two-state position, blah blah blah. Everyone says they endorse a two-state position. And then he says when I was chair of NOLS, we had produced a leaflet which said Palestinians had rights too.
I mean, it's literally
and that's it. That's all he says in a pro-Palestinian. Like, he's got it. They have rights too. Like, he's like, well, look, I said that they are human beings, you see. It's like, wow.
Yeah, and the thing is, isn't that, like, the peak of that tweet that's like, I forget what the original tweet is because everyone's, like, photoshopped over it, but it's like the tweet, that's enough activism for today. He's literally just done that. Like, but in leaflet form.
He says that the people he will refer to later as local Ilford Islamists distributed leaflets saying, Mike Gapes, no friend of the Muslims, a true friend of Israel. He represents Tel Aviv, not Ilford South. Like, I'm just doing it in his voice, because who knows if it actually said that, or if that's just, like, Gapes' addled recollection.
Also, like, that's an insane leaflet. Do not do that.
I think so much shit in this book is just straight up made up. But then, he's just like, David Blunkett is a phenomenal politician.
I mean, that's a word for it, certainly.
he just like drops casually how he no longer expected to be a minister. He doesn't really elaborate on that. I guess he just like was about 60 and nothing had happened in his career really. So. And then we get to, in Gapes' words, the controversial 2003 intervention to remove the Ba'athist fascist regime of Saddam Hussein.
Yeah.
Like it just reminds me of like one of our Gape casts. He's like like Klaus Kinski, who acted in Werner Herzog films. Like he used to go around like I think British campuses doing his like one-man show where he played Jesus and just heckle the audience, and they'd heckle him and get into fucking pitched rows. We basically had a thing where like in the Gape verse, Mike Gapes had like done a Jesus tour, and the Gape Fest concerts that he put on was his return to the stage. And Jimothy's like, Mike, is it true that this is your first performance since your controversial Jesus tour? And then we play a clip and it's just Gape screaming like, I'll fucking kill you, I'm Mike Gapes, the man who is Jesus, and like threatening to bomb the place. And yeah, the controversial Iraq war, I love that.
Yeah, very controversial. He's picked the mildest possible way to describe the Iraq War, and you know what? I can respect his commitment to it. In fact, his commitment was so strong. I think Jack will want to highlight this bit. Like,
this next paragraph is some fucking sick shit, man.
It's insane.
It's like the most twisted fucking shit.
I legitimately okay, I'm going to provide some context for everyone. I legit had to like stop reading at this point and just sort of read it again because I was like, that can't be what he actually said.
Who the fuck is this guy? Like, I was like, this guy is actually a fucking like ancient demonic entity, because this is fucking cold. So, in March and February 2003, my wife was seriously ill. I had been given time off by the whips because of this and the need to care for our 3 young children. I had an excuse to stay away from a difficult vote. But if I had abstained, people in the constituency and elsewhere would have assumed that I was a rebel against Tony Blair. That would have been easier politically, but it was dishonest. It would also have been a betrayal of Iraqi, Kurdish, socialist and democratic friends who I had known for many years. So then he calls up Joan Ryan and is just like, I'm coming in to vote for the Iraq war. You can count on me. It is war. I'm there. I'm a good soldier of imperialism. As a result of my vote for the Labour government motion in March 2003, I faced a lot of hostility locally. Thousands of my constituents were Muslims, and most of them had probably voted for me in 2001. I knew many were... Why were they angry?
Yeah, why were they angry, Mike? I mean, is it because you voted for all of the fucking security shit that demonized Muslims and a war that killed a fucking bunch of people for no good reason? I can't possibly say.
Who knows? He says, this is a great bit. He says, I knew many were very angry with the position I took. My friend Baram Salih, later president of Iraq, of the Patriotic Union of Kurdistan.
I will just say that the Patriotic Union of Kurdistan is the Melt Party in the Kurdistan region of Iraq.
Of course it is.
They're like the center, they're the center. Like, look, I can't endorse the one group that I want to endorse, but the HDP in Turkey, much better, much more based. Their sister party and their associated groups, much better. And we will leave it there.
So he had come into Parliament to speak to Labour MPs, probably to that Labour Friends of Iraq group. It's just like a pressure group for invading Iraq. He thanked me for my support and gave an interview to the Ilford Recorder, explaining why he, as an Iraqi Kurd and Sunni Muslim, wanted an intervention to remove Saddam. So I just love that, just like imagining fucking Jimothy Baker being like packed off by Gapes to do this softball interview with this fucking like US regime change stooge. It's just like, yes, as an Iraqi, here is why I think Iraq should be absolutely destroyed by the United States and Britain. Just like this gullible journalist, like, yes, so tell me more about why there should be a war.
Yes, Teo pointing out it is fucking wild that he is so violently racist and an MP where he is. Yeah, welcome to the Labour Party's many fiefdoms and so on, where you just can't get rid of these cunts.
That is.
Well, I mean, we did get rid of him, I guess, but
that's honestly incredible, though, that he just like left his seriously ill wife's bedside to go and vote for the Iraq War because primarily, if he didn't, he thought it might make it look like he wasn't loyal to Tony Blair.
Yeah,
really sheds some light on the immortal line, doesn't it? I've been through a divorce. I know what divorce is like.
Yeah, I know, right?
Shit, Mike.
Why?
I'm like, Mike, she might have divorced you. In fact, it's kind of the same reason you had to leave the Labour Party. Like, because you were just so in love with war that you couldn't stay.
So then he says, far-left groups and local Ilford Islamists saw my vote to intervene in Iraq as an opportunity to get rid of me. About 40 protesters, mainly from outside Ilford, those like fucking false flag actors sent down by a young Sam Tarry.
That's right.
Like,
how old must Sam Tarry have been at this point? He can't have been very old.
Milne was very powerful working at the Guardian comment section.
Milne directly targeting Mike Gapes.
This feels like the work of Milne to me. So they disrupted his constituency advice surgery, and there was a petition and a march against him. But I just stood firm and didn't back off. After a year or so, I began to again receive invitations to attend events from local Muslim organisations. So just like, they're just a whole year, like, the Muslim community of Ilford and Gapes were like completely at like an impasse. Like there was not communication between them. Like
you could see in the 2019 hustings that someone filmed and put on YouTube that there was still huge tension there.
That hustings is amazing. I might have to watch those hustings on stream at some point. Because like Mike Gapes was getting dunked on worse than the Tory, which was fucking amazing. It's so
how much
good.
Gapes have we got?
We've got a lot of fucking Gapes.
Just in this section.
There's a bit where Mike Gapes thinks Jeremy Corbyn bullied him. Like
before, I think, like, just going in chronological order through here, he talks about his time as chair of a Foreign Affairs Select Committee. Highlights of my 5 years included questioning a living god, myself, Michael Gapes. No, sorry, he says a living god, the Dalai Lama. His evidence session was a media fest, with members of the public queuing in to get in, and several overthrows. Before he began, he foraged in a bag and pulled out something and said, "Ah, sweetie." And then Gapes like sums up, he gives his verdict on the Dalai Lama. He is a really clever media performer.
Can I just say that Mike Gapes really likes the fucking media and the attention. Yeah. Like, he mentions, he remembers the exact number of interviews he has at any given point. It's fucking insane. I can't even remember what I have for breakfast most days. This guy's like, I had 63 fucking interviews after this event in 2011 or something. I'm like, oh my god, Mike, please.
He talks about how, as again, chair of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee, which Mike Gapes was, insane. I know, so bizarre. But anyway, he met with the Chinese ambassador, Fu Ying, who went on to become foreign minister in China, he adds. And basically, she brought a series of books for him about the CIA's role in Tibet. And I can just imagine him being like, "Why are you bringing me this? I know what we did in Tibet."
I was going to say, he probably read it approvingly. He's like, "Oh, really? That's good. Yeah, we should keep doing that."
Would you hand God a copy of the Bible? But yeah, anyway, he then goes off for a huge paragraph about how he hates China and thinks the only way to deal with a bully like Corbyn is to stand resolute and stick to your principles.
Okay, he doesn't actually say like Corbyn, but that is heavily fucking implied.
Yeah.
He genuinely believes he was the target of a bullying campaign, which I suppose in a technical sense, given the Gapecast and so on, he might well be. But
I am the target of a biological warfare campaign, this so-called pandemic spread by Corbyn and his Chinese communist comrades to personally spite me, Michael Gapes.
Oh man. We also get the classic line at the end of this, but we're going to keep going through it chronologically. I keep skipping ahead and I'm like, oh yes, there's so much good shit.
Well, actually, there's kind of a good bit where he's actually like critical of Jack Straw and David Miliband over the over torture. But then he like really fucks it up by like he says that he led a delegation in 2006. I led a delegation from the FAC to Guantanamo Bay, which like is probably where he belongs ultimately for all the imperial war that he has sanctioned. But later that year, we went to Belmarsh Prison for a comparison to see the maximum security prison for terrorists in this country. The detailed report of our visit recommended that Guantanamo could not simply be shut. Some of the people there were extremely dangerous. The US should transfer some prisoners to the US mainland, and the UK and the international community should assist in taking others. And it's like, oh, thanks, Mike. Like, I thought that the people were just talking about closing Guantanamo and just, like, saying to all the people who are, like, convicted terrorists, just like, there you go, mate. Here's a bomb. New York.
Well, don't you know, as soon as you're released from Guantanamo, they send you to a farm where you get to frolic with all the other terrorists. That's how that works, isn't it?
I love that Gapes' like huge idea is like, well, you know, we can't just close Guantanamo and like let all the prisoners out. And it's
what
like,
does he think is going to happen?
Anyone suggesting that?
There's a whole lot of stuff here where no one suggests a thing, and they're like, they're suggesting this, and I'm like, no one said that. Who said this? I don't understand.
Yeah, final paragraph, I think, is the last good bit in here.
That's the bit with the line. He's going to say the line, everyone. I hope you're excited.
Yeah, so he's talking about that, you know, being on the fucking committee and shit. Like, all of this is about his time on the Foreign Affairs Select Committee, really. That's been, like, the apex of his life. But he says, blah, 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 I served from blah, blah, blah to blah, 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 under all these fucking Tories who were perfectly fine with him serving, he's saying.
Yeah.
Then Ian Austin and I... Ian Austin, for his dogged pursuit of justice.
Man who is not interested in dog tallow at all, as we established on the Witcher streams.
Yeah, they were vindictively purged by the whipped vote of Corbyn Labour. Yeah, I think that's the first time he says Corbyn Labour in here. In April 2019, after we had resigned from the party. He ends it on this, like, beautifully huffy note. It is worth noting that Labour never purged the people who joined the SDP in the 80s. They let them stay on the select committees. That's what they mean by the kinder, gentler politics, I presume.
He said the line, everyone. He did it. We knew he had it. He rattles off all the hits. Like, I'm impressed by Mike Gapes' ability to just rattle off the hits. Like,
I'm just going across the room to get myself a cup of tea because I need to drink some liquids after
Gapes' voice. Yeah, it's all right. Yeah, he rattles off all the hits. It's amazing. This is like the best bit. Guys, it's all downhill from here, and it wasn't like we were starting at a particularly high level to begin with.
Wait, sorry guys, 1 second.
Yeah. Geraint, did you have anything to add? You've just been sitting there patiently.
I mean, I think the Gapes bits kind of speak for themselves, really. It's kind of tragic, but that is the first example in the book of an incident that we all sort of took the piss out of on Twitter at the time. him and Ian Austin getting booted off the committee that clearly like really hurts him even more than we thought it would. There's a good one that comes up a few times in the book with Chris Leslie later on. And they're just so rattled by like. Oh
yes, there's such a good bit with Chris Leslie. Yeah. Oh my god,
Chris Leslie and John McDonnell back when he had a backbone, and the rare occasions when the left are actually like
good,
quite rude to them rather than just like disagree to disagree. They take it so badly, and it's so funny every time.
The Chris Leslie bit is so good. Like, you all don't know. If you don't know this story, you're all going to want to stick around for it because it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's exactly what I would have done in the situation, which tells you it must have been really good. Although I might not have done them the courtesy of keeping it contained. Who can say? Oh, it's so good. Yeah, you do get some nice anecdotes in here of times they got owned really hard. But now we're into the awfully formatted bit that upsets me because they write it like a fucking play in this next bit.
It's like one of these sort of oral history articles that they do about some beloved TV show or album or like disastrous public event.
I have to break the bad news to Red Tick Seed. You have missed the Gapes chapter, unfortunately. And I know that's what everyone was here for.
There is more Gapes. He pipes up a lot later on. You've not missed everything to do with Big Mike.
Yeah, and also there's like a lot of really fun shit about the other people. But yeah, you missed like, Mike Gapes doing the line.
Gapes' account of the 2019 election is still to come, and that's one of the best bits of the book.
Oh, my laptop just told me my battery is running low, even though it's at 100%. I'm sure that's fine. I'm sure that's fine, everyone. We don't need to worry about that. The milk speech get mentioned. No, doesn't it get mentioned once, does it?
Never once. This is like Gapes' gambit to be seen as a serious politician in his twilight years.
That's going to be his follow-up book all on its own. Just like how I wrote the milk speech.
Yeah, please.
It's going to be like a meta book about like how he came up with this.
It has been. He has mentioned somewhere. It has been mentioned somewhere how that speech was written, wasn't it? I'm pretty sure in one of the ridiculous melt books we've read that like the milk speech was mentioned.
Do they? I don't think they mentioned the milk speech in any book. If they did, nobody told me.
Yeah, we would have noticed for sure if it was mentioned. I think that's fair enough.
He's definitely elaborated on it, like accidentally on our podcast when we cornered him.
Yeah,
he was talking about the point he was making there. But
the best interview in the history of interviews, some might say.
We'll never top that.
No, it's impossible until we get him on the stream somehow.
Yes.
I don't know how we're gonna do that, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah, well, we got him on the podcast, so anything's possible. And when I say we got him on the podcast, I of course mean the highly successful Gapecast docudrama series.
Yeah, and also, can I just say, some people think I was the person who was like talking to Mike in that. No, I wasn't. First of all, it wasn't me. It would have been very obvious if it was. I've had like two people say. I had two people say to me, was it you? And I was like, no, of course it wasn't me. How would I have got to fucking Ilford when I was in Broxlow the whole time? Like, I don't have time.
We needed someone who wouldn't be detected.
Yeah, like,
I couldn't. There were very few people who would be able to keep a straight face in
I wouldn't be able to keep a
straight
face. Like,
it's incredible.
You were in Broxtowe, obviously, to campaign for the other Change UK candidate.
Yeah, that's right. That's the little known fact. When I was doing all those selfies of me going, I was actually campaigning for Change UK. Fooled ya.
So did we start chapter 2?
No. We were just chatting shit. Yeah, we were about to, yeah.
Cool.
So this is apparently the starting point of the story, which, as everyone knows, I'm frustrated by how people start stories. Yeah. But anyway.
Yeah. We're now 24% of the way into the book, and it's the start of the story.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I gotta say, like, I do appreciate that Chris Leslie, the first thing he gets into is just, like, the soft left of fucking shit, wishy-washy bunch of cunts, terrible people. And I'm like, yeah, I'm with you on here.
Yeah, fair enough.
The worst person you know just made a great point.
Yeah, he's very critical of Ed Miliband as well, and they like even quote Ed Miliband as saying like some really wankery thing about Corbyn. So I'm just like, Gone.
They all shit on Ed Miliband for being too left wing. Like Mike Gapes puts it as his misguided year zero strategy of disowning our past and failing to defend the record of the Blair and Brown governments.
Yeah, also this bit where
really well.
There's also the bit where Chris Leslie's like, I was the main media performer in 2015. I had to go out and defend Ed Miliband all the time, and I'm like, well, you did a fucking shit job then, didn't you? Fucking
It's
Christ.
so funny. It's again like him earlier talking about like confronting that MP when he's like, I imagine that was a shock to him. Where he's like, again with an exclamation mark, he's like, I had to wing it, not easy. Going up to defend Labour over the Edstone.
Which, by the way, was fucking crazy. And I feel bad for him. I would feel bad for him if I thought he was like remotely redeemable as a person, but he's not. What did Ed say about Corbyn? Yeah, what was the Ed Miliband Corbyn quote?
I can't remember. I'm sure we'll get to it.
We'll get to it, everyone. Don't worry about it. And also, does Chris Leslie talk about his photocopying work? Oh yeah, he doesn't mention it in those terms, but yeah, it's
So Gapes calls Liz Kendall the Eat Your Greens candidate, says the stupid members didn't want that difficult message.
I mean, it was a difficult message because it was...
the Eat Your Greens candidate, they're clearly trying to put it across as sort of the difficult truths we have to get across, but I think to the public it just comes across like exactly what it is. Some boring tosser lecturing. Nobody
likes us.
You know? You can't have good things and you're stupid for wanting them.
Yeah, it didn't go down well. Well, it didn't go down well because it was fucking shit. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, they talk about, like, the general electorate. I don't know if you two will remember. I don't know if the chat will necessarily remember it. Do you guys remember they did that debate between the Labour candidates in Nuneaton? Where they had, they did this debate between the Labour candidates in Nuneaton, and it was on the BBC. And they had, like, voters who went from Labour to Tory, mainly in the audience. And they were all like, yeah, we like Jeremy Corbyn. This woman's a fucking piece of shit. And we hate her. And we hate the other two because they don't say anything. Like, that was literally the polling result, you know?
Gapes slags off Andy Burnham here. He calls him the flip-flop.
I mean, fair play. To an extent. Like,
I'd argue with that.
I hope it's a shoe shaped like feet. Then like Chris Leslie's just like listing all these like fucking no marks in the leadership race. Then he's like, and of course Corbyn was in that race as well. Like,
the eventual winner. Really. Yeah, of course. Like the thing he blames 2015 on is really funny because he's like, oh, they looked like they were going to be doing deals with the SNP. Fine, maybe. And he's like, yeah, Ed Miliband laid down signs we were going to be anti-business. What the fuck signs were they? I must have missed them.
He was castigating any sort of private sector activity and moralizing about behaviours.
When did Ed Miliband do that, though? I don't know when he did it.
He tries to pretend he's like angry about exploitative practices, calling them cretinous in the private sector. But then he says that Ed Miliband, he alienated those ubiquitous ordinary people by sounding anti-private sector. All kind of keywords with Chris Leslie and private sector.
Oh yeah, then we get to the Gapes bit where he's like, "Oh, I suppose Bernie Sanders and Jeremy Corbyn are somewhat similar phenomenons because it's these old white men who get outside support."
Yeah, I just love this bit. He talks about the £3 membership scheme, basically blames Corbyn's leadership on that, when actually that just made it a bit more emphatic. Many came in from the Greens, various far left groups, ex-Trots who'd been expelled from the party or left it in the 1970s, 80s and 90s. There were also some enthusiastic young people inspired by and giving support to an elderly white man who'd never held a position of responsibility in his 32 years in Parliament. And it should have been me!
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Basically the undercurrent of that.
There is an undercurrent of like, why didn't I get this?
Elderly white man who'd never held a position of responsibility. Bastard.
Yeah, so this is why I was thinking of the Nuneaton thing, because Chris Leslie goes on to say, I felt that the lesson we need to take forward after the 2015 election was to try and broaden out and look at society, to have a story to tell at a wider level. So by that logic, Chris Leslie should have supported Jeremy Corbyn. These people refuse to acknowledge they're ideological. They're like, they'd be like, no, it's because they didn't have a vision or they didn't have this. I'm like, no, it's because you're right wing, you fucking idiot.
Yeah, well, he's very open about that later, about how Corbyn was electable and he just disagreed with all his left-wing politics.
Yeah.
I think this is great, in case anyone thought there was anything, like, noble and honourable about these people's fucking intentions. Just, like, read this book. They're just like, well, we hated Corbyn because he was anti-capitalist, he was anti-West, and he was anti-Semitic. And you're like, oh, so why was he anti-Semitic? And they're like, because he was anti-capitalist and he was anti-West. It's just like, in case you thought there was any kind of substance to the fucking unhinged shit that these people come out with about the people whose heads they've placed targets on. No, they're reprehensible people and fucking idiots and fucking weird people. Strange, twisted individuals.
Chris Leslie drops, they're yearning for the 70s here, and I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Anyway, these people live in a fucking other world to us. That's all I'll say. And then
I like when Chris Leslie says MPs were emasculated during the leadership process.
Good.
It's like a true cuck.
I mean, he really embodies the cuck spirit in every way. Anne Coffey's here. I made a bunch of notes here for some reason. I made one note on the Anne Coffey bit because she doesn't write very much here because she is the general author, we reckon. She is also the editor. But yeah, she says, like, MPs failed in their gatekeeper role. Well, I mean, they shouldn't have that role. Gatekeeper, yeah. They should only elect Mike Gapes as leader.
Yeah. The keepers of the Gapes.
And,
That's me and FFF.
Yeah, this fucking bit wound me up where Chris Leslie's like, MPs who at least provided some semblance of a voice for the general public in there when he's referring to the electoral college.
Sure,
I'm like,
did.
Chris, who the fuck do you think members are? Like, this is a thing that keeps recurring in lots of stuff where people are like, yes, if you are in a party, you are necessarily not in the general public and don't live in the real world. Mate, I can't fucking pay my rent. Like, get fucked.
Yeah.
You fucking
prick. You know how these Blairites have that, like, catchphrase, but Iraq?
Yeah.
Like, they say it's always, like, one of the whataboutery things that the left does. Well, we'll always say, but Iraq, when they're, like, being brilliant Blairites who are perfect in every other way other than they just happen to invade this one country that destabilized an entire region and killed up to 1 million people. So Chris Leslie plays the but Iraq card here. He says that Corbyn was able to play all the old tunes, including "We don't want the Blairites and their Iraq war." You can just imagine the contempt he said that with. Why would you not want the Iraq war? The Iraq war brought freedom. Don't you know that? Mike Gapes thought so. Chris Leslie, why are you not listening to the experts?
I also noted in that little bit before where Chris Leslie describes the emasculation bit. He says an internal party populism took hold. And we're back to everything I don't like is populism. Welcome back, everyone. In case
he means that momentum activists literally cut off his penis. That's why the Corbyn years were so traumatic for him.
Yeah, there's also this bit that follows on where he's like, please, we have an electorate and we have an eye on the electorate. Please have an eye on the electorate and what is in the real world.
Please, my electorate.
But they wanted what they perceived as purity rather than electability. And I'm like, who do you think? Do you think that these people aren't part of the electorate? What is wrong with these people? Like, what critical part of their brain isn't there? What horrible prion did they get? I don't know. Like, Jesus Christ, the fucking smoothness of the brains on display here is astonishing.
Well, of course, we talked about how Chris Clark, son of Charles, who's been mentioned in this book's visceral aversion to populist, particularly left populist politics, was because of his strong personal identification with the establishment on account of the symbiosis of his political views and upbringing as son of a major politician with whom he presumably has a good relationship. Well, similarly, Chris Leslie is affronted by the idea that Corbynism posed a radical break from the Blair and Brown years because he was there. He is the Blair and Brown years, and he doesn't want a radical break with himself. Like, he knew, as is stated in this book, that if Corbyn got in, his front bench career would be effectively over, and all his fucking shit would be outside his office and just fucking skip.
I just want to point out this bit by Mike Gapes where he says, "But unlike most MPs, I did not stay quiet." And I'm like, Mike, most MPs never. Mike, most MPs never shut the fuck up. Like, you weren't even in like the top 20 most run in their mouth MP in this time period. You were just funny because you went ballistic about milk. Like,
yeah. So let's listen and notice from this little Gapes soliloquy what is absent, what major issue with Corbyn's politics, and integral, apparently, intertwined with Corbyn's view of foreign policy, Gapes at no point mentions here. If Jeremy becomes Labour leader next month, his anti-nuclear, anti-NATO, anti-American, anti-interventionist and Eurosceptic message will be welcomed by some in this country and by some abroad. But it is unlikely to be welcomed by Kurdish and other anti-Daesh forces in Iraq. Like, almost implying Corbyn's, like, the pro-ISIS candidate.
Yeah. I mean, that was Owen Smith, famously.
Yeah, exactly. By anti-Assad Democrats in Syria, definitely implying Corbyn's pro-Assad there. By democratic Central European NATO states like Poland, or by Ukrainians.
So Poland and Ukraine famously fine, nothing wrong going on there. Definitely don't have far-right governments that are gonna, persecute minorities. Completely fine governments, totally okay.
I think what he's saying on the latter two is that Corbyn would be on the side of Russia in matters of Eastern European politics. However, I think that what is most notable is what he does not mention there is anything to do with Corbyn's virulent anti-Semitism, which becomes a major theme later in the book.
Yeah,
without
this was
seemingly Corbyn actually doing anything.
This was written on the 13th of August 2015. Yeah, 13th of August 2015. I want everyone to remember that. Completely fine. Nothing going on there. You'd think if your colleague of many years was a notorious anti-Semite, you would have said something during the leadership election. I don't know. Yeah. I would if one of my colleagues were,
Yeah, he might have found it surprising when Corbyn signed that anti-Semitism motion that Gapes passed that time. But yeah. I know that would be
very strange. Very strange how that happens.
Do you reckon Gapes personally reached out to him to sign it? Like,
do you know that there are
Jeremy will definitely sign this.
Do you know that there are like really weird interactions of them before Corbyn became leader, where they're like weirdly friendly to each other?
Yeah, well, exactly, because Gapes, like, it's not about Corbyn as a man, is it? It's just Gapes hates like trucked politics and just allowed it to completely consume him.
Like
people like Corbyn to become avatars for everything he saw as a threat to his very existence.
One of my favourite ones is the interaction between Corbyn and Gapes dunking on the BBC, and I'm like, damn, the ultimate team up that we didn't know we needed, and we never got to see it, sadly.
Gapes is like, read the Ilford Inquirer, and Jeremy's like, yeah, I think Timothy Baker is a fantastic journalist.
That's right.
Well said, Mike.
There's also, so Anne Coffey decides to complain about Jeremy Corbyn here. I'll read this passage out. His understanding of fairness and equality reduced complex moral issues to an attempt to assemble opposing armies on a tribal battlefield. Translation for you all, he viewed politics as a battle between competing interests instead of like a comfortable little club for all the MPs and their staff to just sort of be like, we can pretend to oppose each other and screw everyone else. So that's basically the complaint at play there.
Well, I mean, these are people who literally couldn't even get on in a party with like fucking hundreds of right-wing dickhead MPs. So, I mean, they definitely don't like to battle with people and be at odds with them. And then, she well, actually, the best bit about this paragraph is the huge revelation that Anne Coffey did not vote for Jeremy Corbyn in the 2015 Labour leadership election.
Big news.
Bombshell.
Sorry for anyone who was holding out hope there.
Like she's a reformed Corbynista. Yeah, she says, like all leaders, he surrounded himself with people who agreed with him. This is like not the only time in the book that Anne Coffey like criticizes Corbyn and then is like, oh yeah, all leaders do that.
Yeah, she's like, I hate it when Jeremy Corbyn does it. I like it when everyone else does it. And I'm like, well, then that sounds like your problem is probably Jeremy Corbyn and not the actual practice at play.
She says, I thought his own political history and support for organisations with extreme views and his apparent lack of enthusiasm for Queen and country would not be very acceptable to many people we relied on to support us at elections. Just like the most like small time fucking like
it's bootlicking, bootlicking fucking monarchy shagging shit. Which, you know,
sad people.
It's just sad. Like,
Queen
if you think you require people to have enthusiasm for Queen and country, I think you might be an idiot. Like, I don't know.
You know what? Those fucking American Lana Del Rey stans have got the right idea, because like when she was like R.I.P. Prince Philip, they were all like, "Ew, do you know that he married his cousin?" That's my attitude to the monarchy.
Yeah.
Ew.
And also, I'd point out that a lot of those people didn't seem to have a fucking problem with it in 2017. And didn't have a problem with it then. I don't know what happened since. Next is kind of a really sad Gapes bit. We'll omit the sad part, but we see the first bit with his...
It's his incredible thoughts. Sorry, his innermost thoughts, not the song Incredible Thoughts by The Lonely Island.
Which is,
It looks like the new Messiah is going to win. I will not accept his policies, and I will not capitulate to the cult of JC.
He's very much a late Roman emperor here, being like, I will not capitulate to Christianity, I swear.
Yeah.
This is, oh god, I forgot what the name of the last pagan Roman emperor was. That's embarrassing for me. But yeah, he's desperately trying to hold on to the old ways.
Yeah, Neil Young album. Not
Julian the Apostate. Julian the Apost Gapes. Very good.
Good one. Then Corbyn's elected, isn't he?
Yeah.
And then all of the mourning begins.
Classic Gapes zinger here. 12th of September 2015 was the day the leadership ballot was announced. I put a tweet out at 9:30am, which said, "Yesterday, Parliament voted against assisted suicide. Today, the Labour Party brings it back for political parties."
Damn, that's some peak Gapes content right there.
Euthanasia humour.
Yeah.
Gapes is like, one of the greats, like Farage's fucked face, Andrew Dice Clay, one of those like politically incorrect comedians who just like challenges the taboos.
And also, the person who wrote Emperor Polygonus Gapes, great reference to yesterday's stream. We'll be seeing Captain Polygonus again. We've got a graphic made of him. There's also the really fun bit where Chris Leslie gets owned. Do you want me to read that? Because it's not a...
Sure.
Yeah. I knew that was the beginning of quite a long period in the wilderness for me. It was quite symbolic of the time going into my office on the Monday after Corbyn got elected and finding all my office possessions in black bin bags outside the door. John McDonnell and his team had arranged to tip all my desk contents into the corridor. Fucking owned.
That makes it sound
the
like
quartermaster strikes.
That's right.
Makes it sound like they didn't even bother to get them in the bin bags, just like clean it up off the floor, you fucking parasites.
Fucking the level of owned Chris Leslie was. We love to see it. There's frankly no other way to think about it.
Nice photocopy you've got here, Chris. Be a terrible shame if everything was done to do it.
Yeah. Oh man.
I'm pretty sure probably the first Chris Leslie use of hard left coming up.
Yeah.
He drops it on the next page, maybe. I felt uncomfortable with the hard left populist approach. There's got populism as well. It's got it all. He just constantly finds ways to rephrase hard left and populist to describe what he doesn't like.
Yeah.
Chris Leslie also, there's a lot of like conspiratorial thinking in here, like their whole conception of what the left's doing is like steeped in conspiratorial logic.
Yeah, he basically lies. Well, sorry, Anne Coffey's the one who lies. This is formatted so terribly, I can't tell who's saying what half the time. Yeah.
No, Chris Leslie lies too.
Oh, he lies too. It just wasn't the lie I was thinking of. Sorry. Yeah, like half my notes for this are lie and name one and what. But yeah, this is obviously the EU they kind of start getting into the EU referendum stuff, and like one of the things here is that like he did little to support the Remain campaign. I'm like, that's a fucking lie.
He deliberately did little to support the Remain campaign. He like that's just like a conspiracy theory thing. Like, how do you know he was just saying, "Oh, I'm just going to like sit at home so Brexit happens"?
And one of the number one complaints they keep repeating across all of the people is he didn't campaign with the Conservatives during the EU referendum. And I'm like, hey, idiot. Did you see what happened in Scotland when you did that?
He campaigned more than any of these fucking losers did. More than Alan Johnson did. It's fucking bullshit. You know, really, if you wanted Brexit to happen, I'd think that you would actively campaign for Brexit rather than just do nothing and hope it panned out right, whilst ostensibly doing the thing that you didn't want to
There's
happen.
also this weird thing where people are like, well, he's unelectable and toxic and the public hate him, and they seem to think he could have single-handedly swung an entire referendum on the basis of his personal charisma and charm. Like, what the fuck are you people talking about, man? Like, also, we got a populism klaxon on the next page with Chris Leslie. He's back to populism and being angry at McDonnell. Mike Gapes continues to call Corbyn the Messiah. What happens in Gapes here? Here's just Gapes got apparently tweet of the day from the Daily Mirror at the start of Labour Conference 2015. Shows like the support that Corbynism had from a supposedly Labour supporting press. This was their tweet of the day. Early start. First train from Ilford. Check map. 2015 manifesto. 1983 manifesto, book on Trotskyist history, tin hat.
It sounds like a really deranged version of Rorschach from Watchmen.
Yeah, oh my god. That's Gapes has just clearly had his mind melted. He had his mind melted in 2015.
Someone's wearing a tin hat, that's for sure. Someone did do that great Photoshop of Gapes, like in InfoWars with the tin hat on.
Oh, that's such a good image. If someone has that image,
this is so funny. He says, again, while attending a NATO parliamentary assembly, it's just the backdrop for this shit is always just Gapes is like attending some fucking NATO shit. Just like the NATO fan club, the NATO stamp collector Association. He's attending this NATO meeting in Norway. He says, I'm not happy with the government position on Syria, but it is preferable to the pro-Putin pacifist hand-wringing coming from the Messiah and his acolytes. It's just like literally like pacifist pro-Putin. Like, make up your mind. Does he want to like support Putin's bloodshed, or does he not like any bloodshed?
And also pacifism, you can be a pacifist, not have opinions on it. It's not really a hand-wringing position. It's a pretty clear position, like whatever you think of it. Like
yes, sorry, then he just writes there is no Corbyn bounce. Obviously, I guess people had been like talking about a Corbyn bounce. Probably just like wanker journalists had been saying there had been no Corbyn bounce, and that was the first time anyone said Corbyn bounce. But Gapes is just writing in his diary, like thinking this is like such a fucking zinger. There is no Corbyn bounce. Cameron and Osborne have had a free hit against Labour as extremists with terrorist sympathisers as leader and shadow chancellor. I went on. Like, why doesn't he just like continue the quote
the thought,
instead of
man.
just say, I went on? Yeah, you certainly did, Mike. You went on and on.
That was the problem. That was the fucking problem, Mike. You went on.
He calls Momentum a far-left organisation and says it will be a front for pressuring and deselecting MPs. But you have thrown down the gauntlet, and I intend to fight back. And then he vows to enjoy himself until the end. Like, either, I guess, until, like, he gets deselected, or Corbynism in Corbyn's mind control induces a massive coronary. But then he speculates he may have to cause a big bang by-election in 2019.
Oh god, then we've got Anna Soubry bits, which I find really fucking uninteresting.
Just before the Soubs bit, which I've just written, what the fuck is she on about? Basically, Gapes concludes that last paragraph. Little did I know then how prescient those inner thoughts were to become.
Like,
so that precedent, you didn't have a by-election. You refused to have a by-election.
Yeah, you were very clear about...
You want to cling on to Parliament.
Yeah, you were very clear about not having a by-election. I remember it quite well.
Yeah. Then Stu just, like, gibbers on with some fucking piss nonsense for, like, fucking...
It's literally her being like, but why aren't policies geared towards helping people? And I'm like, because you're a fucking Tory, Anna. You're a fucking Tory. What do you think your party's job is, you fucking idiot? Christ.
Again, it's just all this shit of just like, and I said to him, that's bloody rubbish, why can't you do it now? I need it now. And then he did it.
She talks about how she printed off a form and owned a fucking minister or some shit, and I'm like, Christ alive, these people can't land and own to save their lives. Like,
so boring.
And also, I like the next chapter as well, because
86 cunts are in this fucking group.
Yeah, but it's the fact that they had a secret WhatsApp group while they were crying about secret WhatsApp groups is so amazing. It's like, yeah, you all have secret WhatsApp groups, like us, right? Like,
they had a series of WhatsApp groups, which are presumably because Chris Leslie kept making them all just like explode and everyone would leave because he was so legendarily bitchy about like fucking left-wing extremists like Wes Streeting. Apparently, you'd always slag him off.
I mean, to be fair, he's easy to slag off, but one of the funnier things is like, they called it the birthday club or some shit like that, and it's like they were arranging a birthday and they coordinated to how can we wreck. Like, just enjoy your fucking birthday, dude. Come on.
This is we'll get to the Gapes coming back from holiday bit in a bit.
Oh, I actually wrote the note 86 cunts on the number.
Here's a funny bit, like, Gapes laments after a really boring, like, history lesson about how Bevan fucking owned George Lansbury.
Yeah.
He says, I hoped that someone in the trade unions and the NEC, someone on the sane left, which I guess is like Neil Kinnock.
And also, I would point out, is a bit of a mental health slur dropped by old Mike there.
Well, it's Gapes. I mean, I'm not expecting Gapes has famously disavowed the Twitter woke brigade, so I'm not expecting
pointing it out.
Gapes says, he was hoping someone on the sane left would go to Corbyn and say, you're not going to win, you're going to drag the party down. But it didn't happen. He clung on.
Also, he didn't drag the party down, Mike. Like, I don't want to be that guy.
No, Chris Leslie says in here he dragged the party
Chris Leslie.
down.
Did you see how poorly formatted this fucking shit is?
No, Gapes did say that. I mean, Chris Leslie says in this book, I dragged the party down deliberately.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, the next bit is the Syria vote, which
oh my god,
it's I'm gonna say the thing that gets people mad at me, but these MPs clearly only voted to intervene to own Corbyn. They didn't care about saving lives.
Yeah.
People get mad at me for saying it.
And a cunt and all.
Okay, and we move swiftly on because he might be watching, and so we don't want to like antagonize one of the valued audience members.
He just heard like the Syria intervention, just like an alarm went off, like beep beep beep.
Yeah.
Turn up to scream, why do you love war? Anyway, why do you love war by not loving war so much? So we're back in 2016, blah, blah, blah. It's so boring. Like, Chris Leslie talks about in his boring way about how Corbyn sacked Michael Duggar. Obviously, there was only one winner there. And then Gapes says, "My high-profile criticism of Corbyn meant I was under a lot of attack from abusive trots and other trolls on Twitter."
Yeah, Mike is obsessed.
He basically says that he had a heart attack.
Yeah, I mean, basically, he also says he refused to be gagged, which is kind of grim phrasing.
That was when the Momentum terrorists kidnapped him and had him bound and gagged, but he said no, and he bit their hands with his strong, milky teeth.
Fucking hell.
Anyway, he actually, he talks here about how he was made president of the honorary president of Labour International, which someone contacted me ages ago was yo, this is bullshit. This is just it's run like fucking mafia, just whatever tosser is in charge of it just gave this to Gapes without consulting anyone. So that is a totally bullshit position. Then he's doing a tour around spreading war around the world. Then the next section is Mike Gapes' illness. So Gapes he warmongered himself into having a major heart attack.
Yeah.
Well, look, he put the need for war above the needs of his family in 2003. So by God, he was going to put the need for war above his own health in 2015.
I am astonished that he hasn't exploded yet from Twitter use. I'm just he can't be a very healthy man.
Yeah, no, come on, look at that guy. He's an Adonis, an Andrew Adonis, bald and everything.
Oh man.
Then Gapes kind of philosophizes a bit. He's every day is a bonus. and he's he wasn't able to campaign in the EU referendum. God, I hate people who don't campaign in the EU referendum. You know?
Yeah, I mean,
and then anyway,
I prefer people who did campaign and didn't have massive heart attacks.
Yeah, I prefer the war heroes who didn't get caught. Exactly. Then he's but I still did a fair bit. And that's the anticlimactic end to that chapter. So on to chapter 4.
I mean,
oh yeah, then Gapes starts chapter 4 reinvigorated. It's just the aftermath of the EU referendum. He steams in with, "I was disgusted by Corbyn's pathetic role in the European campaign and his lukewarm 7.5 out of 10 support. I was incredulous and furious when Corbyn said we should trigger Article 50. Well, yeah.
I mean, he comes in hot in this section. It is a powerful open.
You just that trademark Gapes smoke.
I mean, his mind palace is the most deranged place in the UK, possibly. Because
Counter-do, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, what the fuck is going on in there? Also, fair play to Gapes. He mentioned the 7.5, not the 7, which everyone mentions. He was no, I'm going to be strictly accurate and be 7.5 out of 10. So
what's really weird is that Chris Leslie twice mentioned that Heidi Alexander resigned from a parliament. And I didn't realise that this was Chris Leslie both times. I thought it was him and Gapes. But it's who the fuck cares about Heidi Alexander? She left parliament ages ago. She's a fucking nobody. She's she's Sadiq Khan's deputy transport czar or something.
He talks about Piss Leslie talks about Hilary Benn's speech, which I will remind everyone was ahistorical and bad.
Shit speech by a shit man.
Yeah, we've gone over the speech before. It's just a bad speech. It was a poorly delivered speech that was ahistorical, and Hilary Benn should probably read a history book on the international brigades and see what Labour's attitude was to them. That's all I'm saying. It was not good. Regardless, then they talk about the vote of no confidence in Corbyn. They omit the infamous breaking him as a man section of the vote of no confidence. They omit that, strangely. And he talks about Margaret Hodge and Anne Coffey as being super brave, whatever, for standing up in a room where most of the overwhelming majority of the people agreed with them, and they were trying to bully this man. Like,
they're like, I applaud Peter McNabb for his courage in tabling that no confidence motion against Corbyn with Margaret Hodge.
Yeah.
Yeah, then they've got the stuff about like how a group of younger Gapes like laments that he backed Angela Eagle to challenge Corbyn, but a group of younger MPs did not want anyone who had been an MP from the Blair/Iraq era. It's like Gapes was like, I think I would take the sacrifice of running for leader if it is my time to step forward and defend strong, sensible Labour values. Well, I know, Mike, we're thinking Owen Smith.
Can I just say, thanks to those MPs for giving us the 27 inches moment, because like it's the gift that keeps on giving, even in these dark times. Thank you so much.
Tom Watson apparently didn't like Angela Smith. I think that's that, like, he just wanted a man, basically. I think he just wanted Owen Smith because he was a fucking bloke.
Yeah, there's also this bit where Mike Gapes, like, was flying back from a NATO Parliamentary Assembly delegation again. And he writes in his diary. What's he doing all the time? He's just flying around all the fucking time.
They literally, he like specially arranged it so that he could have his open heart surgery in the middle of like the NATO conference, so he didn't have to miss the debates.
Yeah, he talks about like how upset he basically writes in his diary like, oh no, I get it, we're sabotaging the party. Like, I completely understand that. But he's also like, maybe I should just stop being an MP because I can't get my blood pressure so high anymore. And well, as we know, that may not have stopped.
Anne Coffey says another thing for which, like, citation needed. There is no evidence whatsoever in this fucking book.
Yeah,
I understand why party members and supporters re-elected Jeremy Corbyn. Did you know? She's basically like, well, they're gullible little children.
Yeah,
and
she describes
being
it
part
like
of a
this.
movement is like crack.
Yeah, she says being part of a movement can be an enticing clarion call, not carrion call. That's something else. But I do not think the wider public were engaged by the movement. So, like, what the fuck happened in 2017, idiot? Explain that to me.
The Gates
Magic.
Affair.
No one knows what happened. 2017, who can say? I don't know. I don't know why the line went up when it was going down before. I can't possibly say or speculate.
Then there's like one of the only remotely interesting Anna Soubry bits in there where she's just like, I haven't campaign. I started to get to know people like Chris Leslie and Liz Kendall. I'd look at them and think, God, I've got more in common with this person than I have with that person, and I'm in the same political party as that other person.
Yes, exactly. These people are fucking Tories. Like, we know.
Yeah, exactly. You were in the right party, actually, Anna. Like, it's just more Tories. Yeah,
it was the red Tories that were the problem.
We're actually left wing.
Yeah. But like Anna Soubry does have this thing in her bits. I did like read her bits. I just didn't write many notes on them because she's like a boring person. Where she's like, but why can't I do social democracy in the Tory party? And I'm like, because it's the Tory party, idiot. They're not the Social Democratic Party.
Yeah, totally. I hate her like fucking. Well, she thinks Ken Clarke is social democracy, but like I hate her like pathetic attempts to like try and like talk this like progressive language that brings everyone together. So she's like talking about how she's in the same lobby as all like the great Labour MPs, Chuka and Chris, Gapes, Pat McFadden, another pro-war freak, Wes Streeting, and she says, I remember saying, this is ridiculous. Why aren't we in the same party? We have so much more in common. That expression, that wonderful Joe Cox expression.
That was fucking
more
weird.
In common. We have more in common, and I certainly had more in common, I felt, with them than I did increasingly with a significant swathe of conservatives. It's just so weird when she just keeps saying more in common. It's emphasizing it.
That bit threw me for a loop, though. Why mention Joe Cox there? Jesus fucking Christ, man.
She's just citing Joe Cox for liberal cred. She's just like, that's wonderful Joe Cox. And because it's how people... Well, it's how Anna Soubry speaks. Like, she just be like, that wonderful expression, more in common, that wonderful Joe Cox expression, you know, as if Joe Cox is the first person.
I prefer the wonderful Sinan Coe's expression, Yankee go home, but
I prefer the wonderful Michael Gapes expression, and you have the milk.
Oh, Mike. I always say this is probably going to be the last Mike Gapes themed thing we do, but there's always more content. Yeah, the man will never stop delivering for us. Also,
as long as I'm alive,
find it super
Literally
weird.
Never. He's immortal.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Find it super weird that Anna Subri felt the need to describe her mother as not metropolitan. You know, that definitely caught my attention. That caught my attention for a variety of reasons. A lot of dogs down my street started barking for some reason. I didn't quite figure out why.
I think, to be honest, she's just saying she's a fucking Remainer. I mean, I don't think it's that deep.
Yeah, I know.
Just say, I'm a liberal. I'm a Remainer.
Yeah. Her whole thing here can basically be summed up as, I'm a liberal. I'm not racist. I swear I'm not racist. I just voted for the racist stuff, and I hated my own party and really like Mike Gapes.
She's fucking dumb. Barely any praise for Gapes from her in here, actually.
Yeah, actually, it's really sad, yeah.
Anyway, yeah, so Gapes is saying how in 2016 17 he expected a big conservative majority. He attributes the result entirely to the ineptitude and incompetence of the Tory campaign.
I just want to say that's ridiculously ahistorical, as if Theresa May didn't have an earth-shattering lead at the start and wasn't the most popular Prime Minister in history at that point. Like...
Yeah, he then says that he barely campaigned in Ilford South and went and campaigned for Wes in Ilford North, thinking that Wes would lose his seat and that his majority would fall to about 10,000.
I have some interesting information about Wes Streeting's seat, which is that it could well be lost on the current polls to the Tories. So good. See ya, Wes.
Good. So Gapes basically says he went and campaigned for Streeting because he thought, well, I'll narrowly win back my own seat. Streeting will lose his, so I might as well campaign for him. Both won their seats with massively increased majorities. This is Gapes' explanation, which is fucking incredible.
Yeah.
A combination of a much higher turnout and my strong pro-European message saw my vote go up to over 43,000, and my majority increase to 31,647, as we won 75.8% of the vote. It's just like, it was entirely down to your strong pro-European message. Just the Gapes factor.
Can you? I hate to put pressure on you because of the Gapes voice in the cold. Can you read what he wrote in his diary, because that's fucking amazing.
So this was just after the election. I was completely wrong about the result. So he's gone from like, I expected a big Conservative majority. He's saying he had fought a campaign which did not mention Corbyn at all, and then Gapes then has a dark night of the soul about the general election.
Yeah.
I was Sorry.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was completely wrong about the result. I'm now under pressure from Corbynistas to eat humble pie. A great big humble pie with great big red humble cherries on it. No, he doesn't say that bit. But I won't! The fundamentalists of his ideology and the sectarian Stalinist trot alliance behind him have not changed. I can't accept his pro-Putin, pro-Iran, quasi-pacifist, ultra-left foreign policy.
What fucking Stalinist trot alliance could there possibly be, Mike?
Amazing. He basically, like, Michael Chesson has joined forces with the people who do vigilance signs with their fingers. But basically he says, like, this time he actually takes care to draw a distinction. He says that Corbyn is not just pro-Putin and pacifist, he is pro-Putin and pacifist, so he's not even a proper pacifist. And interestingly, given like the strength of feeling that he would have within a year about this subject, when he's going on about why he hates Corbyn, we got Putin, Iran, pacifism, ultra left, Stalin trots. Well, where's anti-Semitism? I don't see it anywhere there. It's like Gapes didn't think it was like a major component of Corbyn's political outlook or something,
Also,
strange.
Teo asking in the chat, did anyone edit this book? And Coffee edited this book.
Yeah, 100%.
Our view on it. Yeah, Peter McNabb, allegedly, but I don't think they're real.
Yeah.
Show me their Twitter account and then I'll believe they're real.
And Coffee is just like, when I knocked on doors in 2017, I was like, well, I don't support Jeremy Corbyn, but I do support the Labour Party. Thanks for that support.
Do you know what's interesting about this is these are the same people who are like, why doesn't anyone vote for the Labour Party? I want to vote for them. All I did was say for 5 years that no one should vote for them.
It's amazing, yeah. Like, sure, he's unelectable. I didn't vote for him.
Yeah.
I voted Tory in my constituency.
Also, someone calling McTurnan a Stalinist trot is really funny. And I think McTurnan actually follows me on Twitter, so he's definitely some kind of Stalinist trot these days, I guess.
This is the best fucking bit in the whole book, okay? So Chris Leslie's here. He's, like, bitching about Corbyn, how he was very good at positioning himself as the underdog, held the tub-thumping public rallies. Anyone can do that, obviously. We had loads of those. But when it didn't look as though there was any real threat of him actually getting elected, the public didn't need to take him seriously, and he managed to make it a fairly mild loss for Labour.
So here's the thing about that. That doesn't accord with any actual verified information we have about voting attitudes in that election. So there was a study done post-election where, get this, the more likely people thought Jeremy Corbyn was to become Prime Minister, the more people voted for him.
Oh, interesting.
Weird how more the voting intention went up. Weird how that happened. So it's almost as if people thought he was going to become Prime Minister and voted for him on the day. Who could say? Who could possibly say?
Leslie says, bizarrely, he says, it was still a loss, and that was the irony. Bizarrely, Team Corbyn started framing yet another election loss as some sort of victory, which it certainly wasn't. I went on the Radio 4 Today programme a couple of days after and said, isn't it bad we've lost the general election? And got more abuse than anybody else in the election on Twitter for daring to say we had actually lost. Incidentally, according to Southampton University study that came out at the time, I got far more Twitter abuse for speaking that particular truth than anyone else in the party, more than Diane Abbott or others.
I'm sorry.
Just like,
citation,
by the way,
citation needed. I need to see this study from Southampton University.
No, this is a lie. This is straight up lies and smears. Actually, there was a study that showed this nonsense with, I'm sure, like fake figures, but it wasn't even the University of Southampton. It was like the University of Lancashire and some shit.
Oof.
Like Oid PTG sent it to me on Twitter, and like this. Seriously, this is just absolute bullshit. There is like no way in hell that's true. Nobody has ever mentioned this other than Chris Leslie.
The thing is, even if it was true in terms of volume, even if they found like, Chris Leslie received 500 bits of abuse, whereas Diane Abbott gets 200 per day or something like that, like loads of the stuff Diane Abbott gets is like open racism, and quite a lot of the rest of it is very thinly veiled racism. 90% of the abuse Chris Leslie gets is us and our mates saying "piss Leslie" and nothing else. They're not comparable.
Actually, most of the abuse he's got has been on this stream where I name characters Christopher Leslie all the time. That's literally
like literally, you're the host of Reel Politik, and you said "piss Leslie" instead of "who are the hard left, Chris." Like, there's no way to promote our core brand, you know.
Oh no!
Well, it evolved, didn't it? He wouldn't have been on these people's radars if we hadn't started it with "who are the hard left." But you know. It got to a point after Change UK where you need the blunt instrument approach.
Yeah, but to be clear to people, there was a credible study done, and guess who got the most abuse? It was someone called Diane Abbott. No, it was
Mike Gapes because of us.
We need to work harder.
Yeah. What was I complaining about before? Yeah, I know. I disagree. I don't like "piss Leslie" because I didn't come up with it. think people shouldn't use it. I think it's plagiarism. I'm gonna sue whoever did come up with it.
Oh no, that's one of my group chats in big trouble. Oh man.
See you in court, bitches.
Oh no, I'll have to DM them right now and warn them.
So hang on, Jack, you're going to sue them for not using your line. That's a
right,
new one.
yeah.
Yes,
I demand you use the line.
Exactly.
This is the feudal. Apparently, the shitpost left is now feudal contracts all the way down, so we have to start using each other's lines depending on where we are.
Oh man. The most annoying thing was when during the general election, Joel Golby was like always doing this Mike Gapes shit, just like jacked off our fucking timelines, like in his stupid like the week in shit posting column or whatever. Just like go on, suck up all like twit posters doing it for free is hard work like a parasite and regurgitate him in the Guardian without crediting us or linking to our shit.
Oh.
Didn't have high regard for that endeavour.
Yeah. I will just say that Anne Coffey is making shit up here, where she says Jeremy Corbyn's supporters falsely claimed that he had won the election because of a net gain of 30 seats. Yeah. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Literally no one's... I think she thought, like, us being like Jeremy Corbyn as the Prime Minister meant that we thought
She thought he was, yeah.
Yeah, oh my fucking god. But, like, please learn what a shitpost is, people. And there's this thing where it's like, however, we had lost support in what came to be called the Red Wall seats. And I'm like, yeah, weird. It was almost as if it was part of a longer trend. Who could say? Also, that's like not true in a lot of those seats. So, don't know. Basically, my summary of Anne Coffey's bit here is different things are different. She's discovering that things are different, and then that means they're different.
It's boring shit. It's like, oh shit, I haven't written my bit yet. I've been too busy interviewing all these other people under a false name. Yeah. I guess I better just write a few paragraphs about how I like the EU and hate party members. Anyway, box office on the next page. I'm telling you.
Here it is.
Over. So then this is like immediately after the aftermath of the 2017 general election section, they just go straight to the only important thing that mattered after that, Salisbury and Russia. So, Gapes.
So that is March 2018, and we begin with Gapes.
We had the Salisbury poisonings by the nerve agent Novichok, which were quickly linked by our intelligence services to the Russian GRU. I was disgusted by Corbyn's unpatriotic response. He preferred to believe the word of Putin rather than our own services. I praised Theresa May for her statement in the Commons and asked her to seek advice from former Prime Minister Tony Blair.
Fucking hell, man. Fucking hell.
Always the answer. He'll have the solution.
Also, I will point out, these people want a rules-based order until the rules apply to them. So, to be clear, the Corbyn response was the legally correct response. Mike Gapes' response was the batshit insane response. And so you
Putin stooge!
Yeah. There you go. Speaking of Hartlepool, well, we'll be doing a stream, an election night stream, or at least an election stream at some point. I'm trying to figure out when we're expecting results, and we'll do a stream, and we'll have everyone on, and I'll get very drunk. It'll be a good time.
Yeah, so Chris Leslie starts banging on about how the hard left have he uses the hard left phrase, the hard left worldview on the Marxist conspiratorial side of the left. Again, he just throws these words, Marxist, hard left, conspiratorial, populist, right at you, just to see, like, if you put enough of them together in the right combination, it'll be impactful. He says that Corbyn was shambolic on national security. And yeah, the hard left views everything to do with America as inherently evil. And by association, everything to do with Israel is evil. And that bled into an anti-Jewish, anti-Semitic approach that was festering away in those ideological corners of the Labour Party.
I just want to say that's an interesting conflation from Chris Leslie. That's all I'll say. That is an interesting series of conflations right there. Perhaps says something about him more than anyone else.
for suspicion, Corbyn was fairly relaxed about it. He says, again, it's the kind of like vague, specious shit that's impossible to fucking quantify. Chris Leslie looked into Corbyn's soul. He saw how fucking chill the man was. He
and
was
can
like,
I just say, having an anti-American position is the good position generally. So you should have an anti-American position. Apologies to any Americans in the chat.
Support our brave boys.
Yeah.
America. So he says the suspicion was that Corbyn was always semi-sympathetic to an anti-Israel, anti-American worldview, and that began to simmer as a problem for him. There is loads of shit in here where they obviously said like mad stuff, like Corbyn is a Holocaust denier, Corbyn wants to actually physically destroy Israel, and then Anne Coffey had to go through and like change it to Corbyn is semi-sympathetic to an anti-Israel.
Yeah, there is clearly some editing going on here to an extent. And yet, as Teo points out, their analysis of anti-Semitism and how it exists is awful. Yes, because they tie it directly to a whole bunch of stuff that has no business being tied to if you look at the actual history of it.
Yeah, it's just so useful for all their reactionary arguments. It's just like, oh, against capitalism are you? Anti-Semitism. Against America are you? Anti-Semitism. Against, like, endless imperial war are you? Anti-Semitism. It's just literally like, these people don't have a moral leg to stand on. And so they're just fucking delighted to have some kind of flimsy justification to hide behind that isn't just the obvious, which they are entirely open about. We love war and capital.
Which, by the way, just say that. Like, I mean, I'm sure that's working for the Tories quite well, so who's to say?
Okay, so then Gapes goes on to quote his entire Mr. Seamus Milne speech. In my opinion, Mr. Seamus Milne has been dissembling and attempting to divert attention from the real cause and the real culprits, the Putin regime in Moscow. And then, bangs on about Seamus Milne hosting Putin.
Yeah.
But again, just like long-winded shit about Labour's history of being against the Soviet Union during the Cold War. He says Emily Thornberry came up to him afterwards and criticised him for attacking Milne since he was a party official. As I told her at the time, some party officials are more important than others.
Oh, rattling off.
Is that meant to be like a? Is that meant to be an Animal Farm reference?
Animal Farm, yeah. He's doing the Orwell shit.
But that doesn't even make it. It's not everyone's important. It's everyone's equal. Like
and also like I want to be.
But some are more equal than others is a joke. But some are more important than others is just a statement.
It's also a statement of fact. That must be objectively true in a staffing structure, right? Like,
well, I guess that's what he's saying, but then he's putting it here as if it's this joke that like hits hard. This shut Emily Thornberry up.
Yeah. Also, wish Mr. Milne would write a tell-all book. I think that might well be coming. Who knows?
Eventually, him versus Gapes on the same day. It's got to happen.
I can't wait to review that book when that comes out.
Good isolated quote from Chris Leslie here. Moderate members were in despair. I certainly was.
Nice.
There is a perennial.
There is this great bit where he's like, where he's like, the media was quite happy to have a hung parliament because it made things more interesting. And I'm like, yeah, the media were famously very into Labour doing better than expected. They didn't have like a 2-week meltdown over it. They were completely fine.
If you want to like know what like a fucking like awful tin pot organization this so-called People's Vote campaign was, Gapes reveals here that he was one of only 20 Labour MPs, like just 20 shitheads immediately after the fucking general election, which is like, yeah, let's do this second referendum thing. That's still quite a lot. But Gapes was one of the 20 Labour MPs to attend the first huge, he clarifies, People's Vote March in London on 23rd of June. Then there's the anti-Semitism section.
Yeah.
So everyone tune out. Now, if you don't want to get into this, but
there is like a whole bit where
Right, cool. Now all they're gone, let's drop the anti-Semitism. No, I'm just joking.
No, there's a whole bit where Mike Gapes talks about, like, a bit after that, where he talks about an MP who he won't name because he's still in Parliament and has an important role in Keir Starmer's team. My guess is Ian Murray. That's my guess because he was famously almost a cuck.
Well, yeah, there's this constant stuff that, like, Gates and Leslie keep doing where they're just like, you know, and you won't believe what a certain senior Labour MP told me then. It was that I was great. But, you know, his face would go rather red were I to reveal that he was the Keir Starmer's Shadow Secretary of State for Scotland.
Yeah, well, I mean, we have context from the other books that strongly implies that it might well be Ian Murray. That's my guess. I'm not saying it was, but...
Yeah, why aren't they naming him? That's public knowledge, and presumably they fucking leaked it.
Yeah.
Someone in their circle
Someone leaked that picture of him looking incredibly dumb on the podium. God.
Gapes did it. Gapes will get revenge on people who wrong him.
But we made a meme of Gapes and that out of it. Well, maybe that's what he's doing. He's deliberately baiting us now. He knows what we'll do. There's also the bit where he, like, finally fucking decides to leave. Where he's like, I'm not prepared to support the racist anti-Semite, period. It's over for me. And I'm like, well, gotta be fair to Mike. He followed the logic of his position through to its bitter end.
No, yeah, I agree with him. You know, I personally prefer to support a non-racist anti-Semite. One who's acceptable in polite society. Yeah, why does he talk like that? It's so weird. I think it's just that he's aware that anti-Semite is perceived as, in addition to a very serious label for very real racism, basically, you know, used by a lot of people as just a kind of political insult, not to symbolize anyone's attitude to the Jewish people, but their attitude to wider political issues. And so he's got to add racist on just to make sure that, like, well, you know that racism's a real thing, don't you?
I mean, with some Labour MPs, I have questions about whether they do know that, but good for Mike for knowing, I suppose.
But I actually love the start of that paragraph. So a lot of you know, go off on a nice holiday, come back refreshed, you know, all chilling. So Gapes, I came back from holiday in France in late August, very angry about Corbyn. Just like, oh, wow, sounds like a great holiday, man. I bet that was, like, very relaxing after your heart attack. Just like there's another really funny bit as well, like Gapes is given an indication of Gapes' view on Israel. This is when the IHRA debate, which I think we've got into on the show before, kind of came into being, and Gapes wrote in his diary that Corbyn's quote-unquote watered-down version of the IHRA definition is designed to let Corbyn's foul BDS and Palestine solidarity trot mates off the hook.
Oh, God.
Foul BDS and Palestine solidarity trot mates. Like, I mean, incredible,
what
really.
What a sentence.
Yeah, it's if you had written this for Gapecast, I would have thought, like, man, this is a bit much. You know?
like these are his innermost thoughts, according to him earlier in this book.
Yeah,
trots! Russia!
He also doesn't seem to know what a Stalinist or a trot is, judging from how he thinks they interact. They were allies, yeah, famously.
Best of friends.
Why is everyone a trot? I assume these people are still living in the 80s in their heads. And so they just think that's what it is.
There's another such a good self-pity Gapes bit. There had never been any leaks from what I assumed was a secure WhatsApp group.
Oh, man.
But someone in that group decided, maliciously I assume, to give that to Lucy Fisher of the Times. I told her, I don't comment on leaks. All I can say is that I'm very unhappy with Corbyn, and I'm agonising every day about my position. He's just like, he thinks he's such a fucking tease, as if that doesn't just mean, like, yeah, I'm leaving the party.
Yeah, it's like, he may as well have said, yeah, I've got the bags packed, I'm pretty much gone, just give me like a week. Like,
he's like, I was being pursued by journalists all weekend. It was just Jimothy like, Mike, please, I don't know what to write about. Please tell me what to put in the newspaper.
This is one of those moments where he like counts the exact number of like media requests he had. Like, he loves this shit. He lives for it. He absolutely like is a media animal in the worst possible way. Like,
real like comedy of errors here with again the like Jimothy and co. Then my local newspaper, the Ilford Recorder, picking up the story. Picking up the story from the national papers without contacting me, put on their website Mike Gapes to resign as MP. Not to leave the Labour Party, but to resign as MP. This is where it gets farcical. It was the August bank holiday weekend, so I couldn't get hold of the Ilford Recorder. I didn't manage to speak to them until the Tuesday morning after the bank holiday.
I was kind of hoping he'd be like, it was the August bank holiday, so I was at Reading Festival, just like to completely throw us for a loop. Like, oh, okay.
There's a bit where Gapes is like, I now feel tainted about where Labour is as a party. I just wrote, tainted Gapes. that sounded disgusting. Chris Leslie, again, being bitchy, talking about Labour MPs, like, you know, sometimes it's easier just to turn a blind eye to certain things. Not me, though. I wouldn't do that. He says hard left again. He says mainstream values again. He says national security again. Fucking game of bingo right here. Got all of it. He says hard left again.
Yep.
Says hard left again. There's like 3 times in as many paragraphs there. And he, of course, complains about Momentum's highly successful deselection campaigns, which
famously deselected hundreds of MPs.
A grand total of no MPs. Yeah. And now, it's just a bit where he's like, people like Mike Gapes, and I'm like, that what a concept. People like Mike Gapes.
Yeah.
Who is like Mike Gapes? Me.
Yeah, us. We the viewers of this stream and people on it like Mike Gapes. That's it.
I'm the only one who gets Gapes. I understand him alone. Fuck this is some boring shit.
Yeah, they talk about away days where they get caught like chatting shit about leaving, and Chris Leslie's like, I could never give our support to Corbyn, McDonnell, Diane Abbott, and Richard Bergen or whoever taking over the levers of power of sex. I mean, interesting who he picks out there. Very interesting. Diane Abbott. Nothing suspicious there to go on about.
But like, I love this quote from Chris Leslie, just like from someone who was at the time a Labour MP. The 2017 election had been bad enough, you know.
They're just coming out and saying it now because of that leaked report. They're like, yeah, fuck it, I fucking hated it, man.
Here we
shit.
go. Like, this was Chris Leslie just straight up coming out. He uses hard left again later in the paragraph, by the way. But he says, there was always an outside risk that Corbyn could actually be elected. There was no excuse of unelectability really any longer. That's why he felt a heavy duty, blah, 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 blah. Corbyn had a hard left worldview, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so it's bullshit, but yeah, you know.
But basically, Chris Leslie's like, no, the dude could have won, and I wanted to stop him. Like, so when we were all saying that was the number one motivation, well, we may well have been correct. Once again, we're correct and everyone else is wrong. Who could have seen that coming?
I'm always right, and it's the kids who are wrong.
Yes.
Why? I need to get to the bottom of this weird, like...
Yeah, you're like POV... We're doing POV Jack all stream. I hope you all enjoyed it. Don't know how you've done that. It's...
I honestly don't have a clue, man. Really,
It's
really
alright.
weird.
I don't think it's. I think everyone enjoys the artistic, nature of it. So,
like, yeah, chapter 6, reasons for leaving, disgusting shit,
yeah.
vile, evil shit.
Joan Ryan
from
kicking off with a
reprehensible
fictional
people.
version of Corbyn here. I was.
Yeah.
I just like even the first paragraph, just completely fucking fictional. As someone who had the occasional perfectly amicable dealings with Jeremy Corbyn as a fellow North London MP, I was nonetheless fully aware of his obstinacy,
he was a cunt.
rigidity, and his self-perception. There's this thing that keeps coming up where they seem to see into Corbyn's mind and just be like, he's clearly very full of himself. And I'm like, no, dude, he's not the asshole who wrote a book about his vanity project. That's you lot.
Yeah.
Like, fuck you.
Again, they have this, like, this is a man whose belief own moral rectitude means that he is unable to brook criticism. I really cannot think of, like, any political figure in my lifetime who has brooked as much criticism as Jeremy Corbyn. I guess what they're saying is that by not brooking criticism, he doesn't hear their criticism and instantly, like, change whatever he's doing to, like, fit with their own completely different politics. Like, you know, I guess, like, if he broke criticism, it would be like when Joan Ryan is like, you know, waving a Palestinian flag around is racism, and Corbyn's like, yeah, I agree it is. Like, that...
Yeah, I can't
Of course
think
he's
of
not going to come round on that.
I can't think of a figure who sat there and took more criticism than Jeremy Corbyn. Literally, I cannot think of a political figure in any country where that's happened, really. Like, you know, like any country that calls itself a liberal democracy, I've not fucking seen it. So...
It's just like, this is just a fucking, like, insane bullshit. Like, his hard left political machine sought to crush and silence dissent.
Yeah, I have a series of notes here. Yeah, name one occasion where this happened, right? That's what I say. There's
the complete fantasy. I wish there was a hard left political machine.
The sentence before that drew my attention, actually, which is Corbyn presided over a culture of intolerance, abuse, and bullying in his party. And I'm like, yes, from freaks like you. That's who he tolerated it from. That was the problem.
Joan Ryan is a fucking freak, man. Like, all her shit, like, other than Gapes, like, her shit is the most, like, repellent shit in this fucking book. Like, Corbyn was and is surrounded by a clique of Marxists and Trotskyists who do not believe in parliamentary democracy, pluralism, or the rule of law. The prospect of these individuals getting into Downing Street was truly frightening, and a danger the likes of which this country has not experienced in modern times. Sorry, but that is, like, unbelievably right-wing. Like, that... to think that Corbyn would be... Like, I can understand even, like, having massive disagreements with him, I guess. Like, I think you wanker. But at the same time, like... the biggest threat to this country, like, what does she say? The likes of which this country has not experienced in modern times. Like, what counts as modern times here? Because we had World War II, World War I in living memory for some people. Like, that is a massive... That is somebody whose, like, perception of the world is just completely out of whack. Who is just, like, just consumed by a paranoid fantasy.
Yeah, as Sleeping Dragons points out in the chat, thank God we avoided that by electing the much more moderate Boris Johnson, who definitely hasn't presided over unprecedented mass deaths. Yep, yeah, glad we dodged that bullet. Yeah, Joan Ryan stuff is consistently the most fucking awful shit. And, like, most of my notes here are, you're lying, you can't prove this. One of them was, like, it repeatedly broke the party's own rules to further its interests. And I'm like, well, then you should have taken the party to court. Like,
yeah,
if you thought that was the case, you should have taken it to court, and you probably would have won if that was the case.
Well,
you know?
The funniest bit is Corbyn has been a uniquely divisive Labour leader.
Yes, because of you.
His MPs tried to unseat him less than a year into his leadership.
Yep, that's you.
Like, he has been a uniquely divisive Labour leader. I didn't like him.
Yeah,
like, he has been a uniquely divisive Labour leader. I sought to divide people along whether or not they liked him. Like, the House is uniquely uninhabitable. I just happened to pour all that petrol all over it, just throwing that out there unrelated. You know, it's like, really, these people want to maintain that, like, the way that they want to maintain both that the way they carried on was not a factor in the eventual failure of Corbynism, but also that they can claim credit for the eventual failure of Corbynism.
There's also the bit where
they poisoned the well.
There's also that everyone who disagrees with me is stupid. His shadow cabinet lacked talent and intellect because it was overwhelmingly drawn from a narrow element of the parliamentary party. Again, everyone who doesn't agree with me is stupid. And also, if you wanted it to draw from a wider part of the parliamentary Labour Party, maybe you should have shut your fucking mouth and put your shoulder to the wheel.
Oh, yeah, I guess, you know, he just... All Corbyn did was address adoring crowds of like-minded hard-left activists.
When did he ever do that?
I'm sure it was an adoring crowd of fucking, like, bloodless pro-war psychopaths at the LFI meetings, you know? And then she just, like, straight up gets into these lies and smears, like, actual lies and smears. First, he tolerated anti-Jewish racism. From BNP leader Nick Griffin and the former Ku Klux Klan head David Duke, to an assorted bunch of Holocaust deniers and Jew haters, who I cannot name right now, Corbyn appears to attract the most unsavory supporters. Like, do you think that American long-time Ku Klux Klan leader David Duke actually looked across the pond at a British socialist politician from the left wing of the Labour Party and said, yes, that guy is representative of my specifically American far-right kind of culty views, you know, like, of my... The KKK has a very specific, like, racist ideology steeped in this, like, bullshit tradition that, like, D.W. Griffith invented in a movie in 1915. Like, there's not going to be, like, things that David Duke recognizes in Corbyn's politics as his own. It is literally just trolling. And Nick Griffin explicitly posted on Facebook, like, the Zio media have been hoodwinked by my genius ploy to say I like Corbyn. Literally, it's out there for people to fucking say, and people still propagate this lie, because obviously they do not care if it's fucking true. Not remotely. Sick people, dishonest people, bad people.
Definitely. Joan Ryan consistently the biggest villain in this book, as much as we focused on Gapes and his sort of clownish antics. There's also a bit where Chris Leslie doesn't seem to understand how many Socialist Workers' Party members there are and extreme leftists, because he's like, that's what propelled him into power in the Labour Party. I'm like, do you think there are like 200,000 fucking SWP members or committed Trotskyists or whatever? Because I get the feeling the balance of forces in the country would be quite different if that was the case.
Yeah. Ryan...
Tom Watson claimed something like that, didn't he, around the start of Corbyn's time? It was like everyone joining the party is in the Alliance for Workers' Liberty.
Yeah.
Well, thank God that wasn't the case, you know.
I mean...
well, I think that might have been the case, like, in terms of the composition of the party membership when it elected Starmer, but, you know. It was... Joan Ryan actually says, like, her worst shit to this point after this. She says, it was clear that a Corbyn government would do serious harm to Britain's social cohesion and the fabric of our society. Like, this is just, like, whacked out, like, out of proportion, you know, kind of like...
This is, like, QAnon level conspiracy.
Yeah, literally.
Mindset, you know? Like...
So much so. Its agenda is riddled with a divisive them and us populism. Many of the hard left fanatics it selected to fight key seats epitomise this agenda. And then she goes off on like a barely veiled like subtweet of Zara Sultana, saying, among them are people who fantasize about the death of former prime ministers. Don't mention Tony Blair, because then people would have less sympathy, obviously, if they knew it was him. They'd be like, oh, I fantasized about his death the other day. And boast about their plans to celebrate these historic events. Other such individuals maintain social media accounts dripping with misogyny, anti-Semitism, and homophobia.
I have a couple of notes here, but I do want to say Teo makes the good point that social cohesion is her basically meaning white supremacy. I think that's not a wild stretch to say that, because that is what she means, really.
I think so, yeah, because it's like that fash thing, like Corbyn and his people are like allied to exterior forces to.
I did have a note here, which is, okay, so we're saying Jeremy Corbyn is personally responsible for every single thing anyone has ever tweeted in history. In that case, I think they might want to look at some of their own supporters and some of their own candidates for the European election and what shit turned up on there and see what we can accuse them of. I don't know. Like, I just I wouldn't play with a sword that cuts both ways like that if I were them. But of course, there are no consequences for a piece of shit like this.
I'm just wondering what the homophobia on the left was. Like, what is it? Because I've heard the thing, Beast Melt saying the left are all misogynists. I've heard them saying that the left are all anti-Semites. But what is it? Is it just that we don't want to, like, nuke Iran? Because
yeah, I think it is like the Iran thing mainly. And also, I did have something to say about this general section, which is, if you're not, it is a general rule if you're writing this sort of thing, if you say that these things exist, but you can't name a single person who did it, I'm going to assume you were legal that of naming someone because you would get sued and you're lying. That's my baseline assumption. Because there is a next bit here which says there were even prospective MPs who would belittle the Holocaust and spread fantastical 9/11 conspiracy theories. You need to name that person then. Otherwise, I think you're fucking lying.
No, sorry, that's actually true, because Joan Ryan was a Labour candidate in 2017 under Jeremy Corbyn, and she belittled the Holocaust multiple times in this book by comparing it to the experiences of being a non-Jewish right-wing Labour MP in the Corbyn era.
Ah, damn, she's got us there, unfortunately.
Anyway, I've just written 2 pages of pissed nonsense by this Anna Soubry bit, so
it's
skip that.
Pretty much that. It's her crying about a bunch of shit that no one cares about.
Oh man, no, Joan Ryan goes off. Just like, it's the best Joan Ryan shit. Labour was once a patriotic party, clear-eyed about the threats to Britain's national security. Sounds misty-eyed here.
So my note here is, the Labour Party was shit. Like, we know.
And committed to opposing these threats. Corbyn undermined this completely. He steered the party towards his own warped anti-imperialist, in quotation marks, worldview. Disreputable support towards that. Okay, that is not... You don't use disreputable like in that context. Disreputable support towards ballot stuff. Surely support for disreputable.
Right. That's just poor editing.
Disreputable support towards ballot stuffing South American leftists. Again, who cares that the shit about like Bolivia not being rigged at all is fucking nonsense, and that Guiado cunt is a joke.
My note here is lie. Basically, that's a lie.
Just stupid, like just prejudice, just ignorant prejudice.
Basically,
like, we assume they're all banana republics over there, bloody foreigners.
Every single note here, basically for this section Jack's reading out, is lie, except the very last bit, because I'll let Jack read it and then I'll explain what my note is at the very end.
A barely concealed sympathy for the gay-hating, terror-supporting Ayatollahs in Tehran. Again, they've really got to like emphasize that stuff. Like just like gay-hating, like because like this is like the one case in which homophobia becomes like the most important issue. Freaks like Joan Ryan is when they can use the violent image of a gay man in Iran being thrown off a building to like Ono and Jones on Twitter or something. That's like that. This is when centrists get the most animated on the issue of gay rights, when they can be Islamophobic towards people from Iran. But just like the gay-hating, terror-supporting Ayatollahs, not the good terror supporters like our friends in Saudi Arabia. And most worrying of all, he displayed a total failure to recognize the danger posed to Britain and our European allies by Vladimir Putin's Russia. turned into Gapes. It's
There
just,
he is. Russia.
No, seriously, this, for some reason, this paragraph, it starts off with Joan Ryan saying it, and then Mike Gapes is saying it by the end. Very strange, like they're finishing each other's thoughts. Oh, but here, sorry. Indeed, when Putin's henchmen launched a chemical weapons attack in Salisbury, Labour's first response was to seek to muddy the waters, Great Blues singer, by casting aspersions on the findings of Britain's world-leading intelligence services.
Okay, I've got my note here. You mean the world-leading intelligence service who provided the evidence for Iraq? That one.
Yeah, well, it's really America's intelligence services who lead the world in terms of determining who gets to be the leaders politically of different countries. But no, yeah, I mean, I think that's just an incredibly telling thing. Just that whole paragraph is just like, just every like tabloid fucking fascist talking point.
This is the kind of shit you'd see in a deranged fascist like blog. This is what this is.
Yeah, like Tommy Mayer's manifesto.
This person was a fucking Labour MP. They're this right wing and this deranged. Like, what is going on? Well, we know what was going on, but basically the whole next section is just a bunch of lies. Oh,
Gapes does clarify. For me, the most important thing was the general foreign policy. And then he goes off on one, tries to top Joan Ryan. He's like, Putin and Russia, NATO, anti-Americanism, support for Hamas and Hezbollah. These are a few of my least favourite things. Cozying up to all kinds of dodgy regimes. Again, not like the dodgy regimes who put me up generously in a 5-star hotel and give me complimentary milk. They are good. Corbyn had been the president of the Stop the West coalition, and his leader's office was inhabited by people who had that kind of politics. This sentence just sort of trails off there. The idea of Seamus Milne being in number 10, directing Foreign Office diplomats as to what position we would take on the international crisis involving Russia, filled me with horror. To him just there, like, breaking himself over the prospect of Mr. Seamus Milne in Downing Street.
Oh, God, and I've just seen the Joan Ryan follow-up to that. Fucking hell. The Joan Ryan follow-up is a fucking disaster as well.
She's an evil piece of shit. Like,
yeah,
just
we can't emphasize enough how much of a villain this person is. Like,
if Starmer welcomes this person back to the party, he is like every bit. We know he is anyway, but he's every bit as evil as she is. The problem is compounded by a still greater one: the anti-Zionism, shaped by a broader, anti-Western, perverted form of post-colonial far-left politics. I know that means perverted as in twisted and changed about, but I imagine that she's saying, like, those bloody left-wing perverts, I'm going to kick their heads in.
Also, post-colonial far-left politics is doing a lot of work.
It's those ballot stuffers from Latin America, you know, none of them democratically elected. So can't get my fucking shit in a good position. She says that this is shape is absolutely central to the Corbyn worldview. Corbyn's determination in the summer of 2018, despite the potential political cost and damage, should have put political expediency over his principles. I mean, I thought this book was about having principles, but okay. To push for the right of anti-Semites to describe Israel as a racist endeavour is a testament to how deep his commitment to anti-Zionism truly is. Again, clearly Draft 1 said his commitment to anti-Semitism or his anti-Semitic view.
Yeah, and also, even with the editing there, that is a really
disgusting.
disgusting and really, like, bad conflation to be making.
the rights of anti-Semites. Again, she's like, it's because it's not referring to any particular individual.
Yes.
She's just like, she can just cavalier refer to like all Jewish anti-Zionists as anti-Semites.
Yeah,
just perhaps the least subtle of all of them at trying to very clearly sort of get that anti-Semitism label on the entire left, you know?
Yeah, who'd have thought it from the former chair of LFI?
Yeah,
you know?
like it seems the problem for them is for her is opposing settler colonial state. She seems to really like settler colonialism. I don't know. That seems to be the only conclusion where we can draw from here. And yeah, Teo asking what do they think is correct post-colonialism? I don't know.
They don't.
They don't.
Yeah,
like I don't think they understand what post-colonialism is, and I don't think they, if they understood it, would like it particularly.
I guess they support the more like neoliberal or proto-neoliberal globalized form of colonialism, neocolonialism. I guess that's their vision of post-colonial society.
Would you believe? God, we just got boring Anna Soubry, Chris Leslie shit.
Yeah, Chris Leslie's saying how much more he has in common with Tories than people in the Labour Party.
Yeah, this is basically love letters exchanged between Anna Soubry and Chris Leslie at this point. Like,
yeah, just total wank for page after page.
And then there's like a Joan Ryan bit, which is just a fucking ridiculous. She just inserts herself in the worst places, and it's fucking ridiculous shit. Like,
yeah, Chris Leslie again emphasizing. Look, you can't really see it because it's highlighter, but I just wrote drunk over one of the pages in big capital letters. Yeah, Chris Leslie banging on about the hard left and how they're anti-business. Anna Soubry claiming that David Lammy told her that the two of them were the only pro-immigration people.
Yeah, like that was something that bothered me because, like, okay, like, but the person who this book is taking a shot at very clearly was more pro-immigrant than you fucking idiot. Like,
yeah, I love the like, you know, David Lammy once came up to me and he said, bloody hell, Anna, you know, you're a bloody greatest anti-racist of all time. It's very much like this bit in, again, the Gapecast, where Gapes is like, and I particularly enjoyed the hologram of Tupac, who shook my hand and told me I was the greatest anti-racist of all time. It's an FFF joke.
And there's loads of stuff here where they're like, yes, well, anti-Semitism was important, but here's the thing that actually bothered me, and it's always like tax policy or business. And I'm like, just for goodness sake, just say it was one thing or the other. Don't make it about these other things, because you're making a community your human shield for your fucking horrible politics.
Jesus, they haven't even launched the fucking group yet.
Yeah, I mean, fucking hell.
Just Jesus.
Yeah, there's a lot of build-up here, and Anna Soubry is just, like, the worst. She's like, I am not racist, I swear. And there's a bit here where she's like, I can't believe that Theresa May said that if you're a citizen of everywhere, you're a citizen of nowhere. I don't understand when the party became so racist. And I'm like, Anna, it became racist when it was founded, because it was founded in the UK, a white supremacist society. Get with it, come on. Stop drinking so damn much. Come on.
Isn't she complaining there that, like, Amber Rudd came out and said, like, if you're a citizen... No, not if you're a citizen of the world, you're a citizen of nowhere, but some kind of, like, racist anti-immigration shit. And she's, like, hearing that even from Amber. It's like the last person I expected. A senior conservative minister who's never shown any progressive like inclinations whatsoever, even compared to like a pathetic right-wing idiot like Anna Soubry. Like it's really great. You know, just like the affinity that all these appalling establishment politicians have for each other.
I don't understand what these people think their parties were. That's the thing that I'm confused by.
Yeah.
Should we go to the launch and then sort of start wrapping up a little bit, because there's still a lot more going.
I'm ahead of you. Yeah, Chris Leslie basically slags off Tom Watson.
Yeah.
He says he left a lot of Labour MPs in the lurch. He says people shouldn't have put their hopes in the fact Tom Watson would solve the Corbyn problem, and he criticises him for singing "Oh Jeremy Corbyn."
There's also the funny bit here, which is that the Future Britain group only met once, which is pretty funny. Also, Anna Soubry being a massive simp for Chuka is really funny and kind of evident in some of this, where she's like, "Oh, I remember going on a couple of trips with Chuka and Chris," and like do you guys remember when she was like properly betrayed when Chuka went to the Lib Dems?
Yeah,
she was like properly heartbroken.
I joined this party because of you. I left the Tories because of you. And in this book, she actually backtracks on that and explicitly says, I didn't leave the Tories because of Chuka. Like, just completely goes back on when she said that, no, that is what she did.
Yeah. There's also this bit with Mike Gapes saying when Luciana Berger, she wants to defect with them. Luciana was central to the fight against the anti-Semitism of Corbyn Labour, and we hoped other MPs would join us if she left. Weird to make her that central figure in that way.
Chris Leslie pretty much says, like, well,
quite open about the cynicism of the timing,
We kind of needed her to hide behind because all of us just like capitalism and war. So,
yeah.
Pretty much that Chris Leslie openly admits that. Sorry.
Oh, sorry, I was going to say, there is a great bit where Mike Gapes says, "I myself did 28 interviews that day and my colleagues were in similar demand." The man is just delighted that he got the attention.
Oh, yeah. We also planned initiatives and debates to challenge Corbyn. One example was the urgent question I had on Venezuela, where I denounced him and several of his front bench for supporting the repressive Maduro kleptocracy.
All the hits. He rattles off all the hits. If it was just the Mike Gapes section, first of all, the stream would have been over, and second of all, we would have had a much better time.
Because I'd have already lost my voice.
Yeah, well, that's true. I probably would have done some of the lifting on the Gapes voice, even though mine is not very good.
No, sorry, no, but other people aren't allowed to do the Gapes voice. Even Gapes himself, if I ever see him fucking open his trap, I'm gonna tell him, shut the fuck up, that's my voice. I've stolen your voice like a fellow demonic entity.
Yeah, there's just a bunch of cynical shit in here, basically. They also flex about their Twitter numbers again, of course, because that's all these people have. They talk about Tom Watson getting owned by John Landsman, though they refer to John Landsman as
funny.
Momentum owner John Landsman, which I always find...
Yeah.
The exact same phrasing that the Squawk Box guy would use,
Free-spirited P.
Yeah, just him getting owned by Landsman is kind of funny. And they described their launch as incredibly successful. And I'm going to remind everyone that this was the launch where Angela Smith dropped left-wing intellectuals and then proceeded to say funny tinge on the fucking news.
Oh, yeah, they don't mention that. They don't mention that anywhere. Angela Smith eradicated from this narrative.
Oh, absolutely.
She does not feature at all. They are just like pretending that the Angela Smith thing, by which I mean her existing, didn't happen.
There's also this bit where Anna Soubry is just like describing Luciana Berger in the most
I'm literally on that bit now. It's so weird, isn't it? It's so odd.
She says magnificent 3 times.
Should we who wants to read this passage?
I'll do this one. It's very strange. Yes. The only way it would be weirder is if it was coming from like Mike Gapes, but I think they're talking about the launch basically. I think it was the sight of them going into that press conference, and there was something very powerfully symbolic about Luciana, I think, standing there heavily pregnant. A woman looks quite magnificent when she's in those final stages of her pregnancy, because you're like a magnificent sort of galleon and statuesque. But also, there's an incredible vulnerability as well. Luciana does have a look. I mean, she's just very striking. And this woman's and this woman standing there with all that magnificence, but also the vulnerability, saying, I have left the Labour Party because I've been hounded out.
So drunk. Why would you didn't need to read the last bit? That's their propaganda.
Oh, FFS.
So drunk.
They do not mention the Nando's trip, the infamous Nando's trip. But we will. We will, don't worry.
Oh yeah, what the fuck? They've so all the stuff that everyone made fun of.
Yeah.
They're just like, let's not do that. Let's focus on the positives, like our protracted battle with change.org.
Yeah.
Or as Gapes refers to them, an American petition site. Never heard of them myself. I don't think they're around in Ilford.
Yeah, it's interesting that all of the stuff that got made fun of was removed, leaving very little of the actual launch to talk about. And also, Teo, this is the thing where people overly compliment their minority friends. It does have that feeling, yes. It certainly does happen.
Chris Leslie's like, we had some heady days. I love him just trying to sound like the chillax guy. Like, what's the Office quote?
Yeah.
Like, surprisingly relaxed, or we're gonna wither and disappear. Unfortunate. Someone come with that David Brent thing about he's, for a man in his position, he's surprisingly relaxed.
Yeah. But yeah, we're basically they only talk about the good bits of the launch, and then they go into the Lib Dems fucking ruining their fun, basically.
Yeah. So Gapes is like, they had grand plans. He says that oh, actually, sorry, I just got Chris Leslie. So basically, they get into here. So firstly, there's the boys, just
the lads.
Yeah, there they are.
Time.
Can everyone see that? Okay, I'm not. Okay, there you go. Just lift that up slightly, just so everyone can get a better look. So they have grand plans. Firstly, the composition of the group politically gets diluted a bit by all these fucking Tories from the Tory party rather than the Labour Party joining. And then, Gapes wants to do, a big, a series of events around the country, thinking, engaging, listening exercises, working towards some kind of membership system with our first conference in the autumn.
Yeah.
However, in these heady days, there were various, I think, hoops to jump through, in Leslie's terms. So, Leslie, who was worried that they were going to wither and disappear, says, unfortunately, we soon realised that the Electoral Commission in the UK were a very, very restrictive organisation. You can't just stand for elections. You have to jump through a number of their hoops to be registered as a political party. We were conscious that local elections were coming in May, blah, 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 blah. And then,
he also describes Change UK as a strong brand, and I suppose in the sense that everyone made fun of it, it was a strong brand. But basically, their main thing here is they got owned by the Lib Dems, which is kind of embarrassing to say the least. Also, Mike Gapes very correctly hates the Lib Dems, he viciously hates the Lib Dems, which fair play to Mike on that one, really.
What funniest Gapes bit in this section is just I wanted to put a hashtag in our name.
Oh, yeah, that was a thing. Apparently they had
it's tech, it's exciting, it's young people, it's crowdsourcing.
That was one of the many things we laughed at, was that was an idea they had. And obviously the Electoral Commission were obviously the Electoral Commission were yeah, you can't have a hashtag in your fucking name. Don't stop being ridiculous. So
yeah.
I don't know whether to condemn the Electoral Commission for destroying Mike Gapes' dreams or praise them.
I was just trying to find that bit where they talk about their struggles with.
I'll kind of keep everyone busy with this bit where they're talking about vetting the candidate. You'll remember the European European elections and the scandal of their various candidates basically just being open Islamophobes and racists.
Because me and Geraint got about half their slate kicked off.
And Loki as well was doing a lot of good work.
Basically, here's what they did. They all sat around in an office and spent 3 days going through 30,000 people, which, by the way, is too much
this
work.
It's a contradiction, by the way. They've previously claimed they got an expensive outside firm to do it, which I think they probably did, and they got wallet inspected. So they can't even keep their own story straight on this. But I reckon they probably did both, and they were both shit at it,
Yeah, it was a pretty shitty thing, because they described as Mike's own words here, but a couple of names got through that shouldn't have done, and it was unfortunate and embarrassing. And I'm like, yeah,
it was several who
it was like
Gapes
half
at
your
the time.
slate. Like,
Gapes at the time of the hustings in December in Ilford South was still unequivocally defending in the case of Nora Mulready.
yeah.
Oh yeah, that's clearly not even one of the people he means, because like her horrendous views are mostly ones he shares, you know.
He means like some of the proper wrong-uns that, well, they were all proper wrong-uns, but like the ones that like everyone was like, oh, we probably shouldn't have let them through.
The original number one list candidate in Scotland had tweets sort of like Gary Glitter did nothing wrong.
Oh my god, that's just remembering the good times.
It starts falling apart from this point. Leslie's bitching about how, as he always is, he's bitching about something. This time it's about how Gavin Shooker isn't fully engaged in the process anymore.
There's also the bit where Heidi Allen, when she becomes their leader, tells people to vote Lib Dem.
Yeah, that's great. Gapes describes that as treacherous stupidity.
I mean, he's not wrong. In fairness.
Yeah. Gapes says, to be fair to Heidi, she said herself that she was very inexperienced and, unfortunately, during the European campaign, became very clear. Fuck yeah, your shit.
Yeah. They also talk about the lawsuit from the petition website.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to do. Just that goes down pretty much just after Heidi Allen. Yeah. Apparently, it was a group of Lib Dem lords and business donors who persuaded her that Change UK should stand aside for Lib Dems in certain seats. Like Chris Leslie's like, yes, she's very easily swayed. Basically, she's just a fucking gullible idiot. You just put her in. You just stand somebody in front of her to talk at her, and she'll think that. Pretty much. So.
There is a great quote. I can't quite find it right now. Where Mike's like, "If the Lib Dems were a solution, they would have sorted it by now to justify not being a Lib Dem." And I'm like, yeah, fair enough to him on that one. He's kind of figured it out.
So Chris Leslie, but again, it's just like a bunch of Lib Dem lords and business donors told her to do this, and she was like, "Oh, okay then." And it's just like, this is typical Change UK. Just like some fucking capitalist from a city of London is just like, so here, look, here's a bunch of my shit taken from my arse.
The thing is,
and they're just like, wow, thank you, I will do that. They will literally jump not through but into the outer bit of a ring of fire just to because a business person told them.
There's also the bit where Mike Gapes actually seems to understand what they were going for better than any of the other people in the book, which was, our best appeal was to moderate Labour and moderate Conservative voters who, for good reasons, didn't want to vote Lib Dem. I'm like, yeah, make him the leader. He sounds like he knows what he's doing, and we would have got way more meme mileage out of it.
Leslie's just we raised a lot of money and did a massive amount of work on that. I think we raised up to £1 million. Oh yeah, I bet you did. I bet there were people just you think... So wait, how much will this make? How much less likely will it make this that Corbyn becomes Prime Minister? A small percentage. Well, it's a percentage.
Yeah, there's also the bit where they talk about the post-election bit, and he apparently has two young constituents who work for him, Jack and Grace, and I'm like, wait a minute, Jack.
No, Jack was interviewed in our Gapes on the Ground special in Ilford South. We got that guy. We got him. We quite literally we got him. He was talking to Rupert, not knowing he was an undercover Reel Politik Reel Politik operative. So he was there. Gapes's campaign manager was there saying how Gapes became more of a meme than an actual politician on record.
Also, do they ever discuss where the money went? Strangely, no. That never gets really specified.
Just oh, come on, Gapes, get yourself some milk. Yeah. Just Gapes buys the biggest dairy in the whole of the UK. He buys all the dairies in both the north and the south of Ireland. He's the production chain will never run dry.
You can tell I got frustrated because there's a bit with Chris Leslie's I wasn't a Liberal Democrat, and my note here is, yeah, you're a Tory, mate, we get it.
Yeah.
Oh, there's just
where's the change UK? Fuck.
There's-
Where?
I think.
Oh,
Yeah, go ahead.
sorry. No, where? I lost it. I had it a minute ago. Oh yeah, sorry. Naming issues. So it is quite funny under naming issues. They just have Mike Gapes. Talk about naming issues. I mean,
if I were named Mike Gapes, that would be a naming issue, certainly. I think there's a great Mike Gapesism here. At times, I felt a bit like an aging rock star on his final valedictory tour, and I'm just like,
you've skipped forward, I think.
Yeah, I have. Sorry.
There was an immediate issue to resolve over our name. We couldn't register as independents, according to the Electoral Commission, nor as the independent group. We had to be Change UK, the independent group. We faced threats of legal action from an American petitions website and resolved them by an agreement that we'd change our name again after the election. We had tried to use a hashtag in our logo, in our brand, but our logo was rejected by the Electoral Commission. So then we had to, in just a couple of days, produce an alternate logo, which wasn't perfect, but we didn't have time to test it. We were then ridiculed by the media for that logo. Everything was so pressured.
Yeah, God. Just, I've got to the dissolving the party section because that question just made me think of that. Basically, they just say, and that was that. It's done. They don't mention anything about any money, anything like that. If we recall, the financial records conveniently missing. Mike Gapes lost them.
They're somewhere in the catacombs of Ilford South.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they couldn't even do the logo. I mean, it was just embarrassing. Basically, this book is one giant embarrassment.
Yeah, man. God, there's still quite a few people watching.
Yeah, I know. We've been going on, and people have stuck with us. But I don't think there's... Yeah, sorry.
I think the one bit that we need to highlight, because it is the greatest hits, is that fighting on section.
Yeah.
It's stuff Gapesy's banged on about on Twitter, but with some beautiful turns of phrase.
Where's that again?
Oh, God damn it.
Fighting on, so it's like...
Fighting on!
page 110 on my ebook version.
Oh, man, just click past that bit where Chris Leslie's like, I wasn't a Liberal Democrat, you know. For a start, I was drastically to the right of them on crime, law and order, drugs, international issues, and political philosophy generally.
Yeah. Yeah, there it
so
is.
Oh yeah, he's got all this Sam Stitch Up Tarry. Stitch Up Sam Tarry.
The party head office for Momentum Corbynite.
My slogan was real Labour values and an independent mind. Corbyn Labour were furious. They even threatened legal action against us because we were using new Labour red and yellow as the colours of our leaflets. I pointed out that the Corbyn Labour colour was dull red, not bright red and yellow.
Oh, man. Oh, I feel like we have to wrap up soon because
Sure.
Yeah,
more people have actually started watching.
Yeah, I know. I'm really annoyed. We peaked at like 88 viewers. So
yeah, but it stayed steady. Quite high.
We've been having a good time. I've been enjoying this. But
Anna Stewbury saying Chris Leslie is like the great lost hope of politics. He's young. He's got his whole life ahead of him. He could be in Starmer's shadow cabinet by now if he'd stayed in. Kind of agree with that, but also he's, by all accounts, one of the most... Well, he was, when he was a Labour MP, one of the most hated figures in the entire parliamentary Labour Party. No friends on the right.
In fact, there was a bit where they said they couldn't have Chuka as leader because Labour MPs hated him as well. So they just seem to be the most unpopular.
But also, Luciana Berger vetoed him, apparently.
For unspecified.
they then went to work for the same company within a few days of each other. Like,
you know how there's all those untrue rumors about Chuka that have been put out there? I reckon that because they're not actually like that bad, he put them out there himself to distract from the real secret that he's hiding, which is something that is like devastating, and it's why every time he has this opportunity to like be a leading figure, he always just happens to have to drop out or he just can't take the role. He just fucks up somehow. I reckon that literally like his massive gaffe over the Super League at his new JP Morgan job was a deliberate self-sabotaging mistake because he got in too deep at JP Morgan, and one of them was gonna like read his financial records or something. I don't know. I can't speculate as to what the real Chuka secret is. Perhaps he worked with Mike Gapes on some like covert ops, but that's my theory, along with Ann Coffee Truthorism.
This is the bit after that that's called No Regrets, which is the bit where Chris Leslie's like, I mean, he could have won. For all we know, he could have won, so we had to stop him.
Yeah. Yeah, they really, they don't start trying to hide it particularly well, but the longer the book goes on, the more open they are. Just like, oh, fuck Corbyn, job done.
Jack has frozen on my screen. I don't know what's up with him.
Yeah, we made it hard for. Oh shit.
Oh hey, how you doing? Jack, can you hear us?
Yeah. He's dipping in and out. I think.
Yeah. I got the gist of what you were saying. I think it cut out for a bit, but I heard the start and end of what you were saying, and I get it. I think. I know.
Yeah,
I know
my note here is basically it was all about Corbyn. The end. Like,
I love that. Like, Chris Leslie cites Starmer's like bullshit 10 pledges as a reason why he can't rejoin the party. Like, that continues very much this Corbyn agenda on mass nationalisation and prevention of military intervention. I'm like, I wouldn't worry about that, mate.
But also, how right-wing are you when Keith isn't to your liking?
It's like John Rentoul thought.
Yeah, there's a bit where Anna Soubry complains about British politics being broken when she's the one who broke it.
Yeah.
The rest of the book is really just them being upset that they can be cool.
I think that as well as the fact that they like slightly edited a load of the most disgusting lies about Corbyn to like say anti-Zionist instead of anti-Semite or something.
Yeah.
Like, I think that both Chris Leslie and Mike Gapes it seemed like a hilarious Gapes diss, but he referred to Change UK as to change.org as an American petitions website. But then in the next fucking paragraph, Chris Leslie refers to it simply as an American petitions website. Oh, and he talks about how Change UK were genuinely terrified. They had the fear of God put into them by change.org's legal threats. Like, I had them bricking it.
Yeah. I think, unless we really want to go on to any other sections that anyone else wants to highlight real quick.
The only thing was I can't find it. It's really brief. I'm just having a look through to try and find it. But there's another bit where Chris Leslie goes back to the incident where John McDonnell like dumped all this stuff in a corridor.
Yeah,
and he literally says like John McDonnell defenestrated me or something like that. But that's not what that word means. He put some of your shit in a corridor. He did not throw you out of a window.
I want to share this Anna Soubry anecdote that possibly never happened. It sounds like it's just drunken ravings, but on the other hand, Labour MPs are such pathetic people that this could actually be accurate.
Yes, I think I know what you're going to say. Yeah, go for it.
She talks about like Labour MPs coming up to her and saying, "Well done, keep on going." It's appalling. I don't know what is. The ones who said, "I just think you're so brave," including a Labour MP who I like very, very much and admired. While I was sat with Chris Leslie, he came up to me when we knew that the election was coming. We knew what our fate was, and he came up to us. His eyes filled. He was welling up with tears. "I just think you've been so brave. Both been so brave." He got re-elected, by the way, and is now a shadow minister. It's like Starmer's just like given this absolutely pathetic cunt a job. Then you have like some rounds of disgusting shit from Joan Ryan before Coffee, obviously the author of this book, signs it off.
Yeah.
Joan Ryan just drops in here, just like a nice little fash thing about how the left are not a legitimate part of a democracy. She says, far-left leadership cannot be engaged with in the manner that one normally deals with those in politics with whom we disagree.
So can I just say that is a baseline fascist position? So there you go.
Look, normally you have your party, I have my party, or we have different factions within those parties in which we organise. No. I think that for the views you hold, you should be in prison.
Yeah.
You should be killed. That's
basically. I think that they should be sent to stadiums, and whatever happens, happens. You know, who can say what?
You
happened?
do not deserve suffrage. She then basically concludes.
Oh, there's also this bit where she says you cannot fight anti-Semitism without fighting anti-Zionism, which I mean, What do you even say to that, really?
Yeah. She basically then concludes, and the demonization and singling out of Israel must end. The party needs to develop a more balanced policy towards the Middle East and the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
Yeah. I actually had a note here, which was basically, we might treat it as a balanced issue if it were a balanced thing. And also the word conflict is like... the word conflict is kind of burying the lead on who has the structural power in that situation and who is firing rockets made of paints of tins, and who's got like one of the most advanced militaries in the world. Who can say? You know, why we don't treat it as a balanced
totally.
thing.
So Anne Coffey concludes her little book, which she has written, with a tiny paragraph saying, the 5 MPs' actions are a challenge to a party system which, instead of protecting against extremism, can become a vehicle for it. And she forgot to include an apostrophe after MPs.
And also...
But yeah... Stop the extremism.
Yeah, that was what I was kind of going to go for. Also, she's discovered what liberal democracy is. I think with that, we can safely wrap it up, because we have gone on for 3 hours and 18 minutes, which is...
nice.
I think that's longer than the editor took actually looking over the material and compiling it in that book. By about 2 hours.
Yeah,
we will go on for under 3 hours next time, and that is a chuka promise.
We never do, but we'll try. So Jack, Geraint, thank you for coming on. Do you guys want to talk about all your cool real politics stuff you got going on? Anything big coming up while you've got the audience?
No, not really. Actually, no. We're going to be doing something with our boys from Canada, the Michael and Us crew, tomorrow. Not tomorrow. They're probably like next week or the week after. Also, keep an eye on Balami Radio, where a playlist I co-compiled with my friend Emmett of deep live Neil Young cuts should be airing shortly. It's been delayed due to containing too many truth and facts, just like when Chris Leslie dropped facts such as Labour actually lost the 2017 election and I received more abuse in that election than Diane Abbott did. Objective facts, you know.
Yeah. True facts.
Other than that, check out our 200th episode that we just dropped.
Yeah.
It's like me, Geraint, Sarah, Disso, Yair, cameos from Sinan, from Josie Long, from Jude, June London, from Nate from Trash Future, from Geraint, who helped me.
Who else have we got? We got Bane, who's on there.
Bane but woke, in character. Shrieking Tin Man.
Shrieking Tin Man, yeah. We have Farage's fuck face, of course.
Well, Jimothy Baker. I want to correct you there.
Keep K-Fab.
Yeah, exactly. There were more. There was Arjan from Leftover as Tony Blair. And
Mike Gapes
just like
himself, of course.
Oh
yeah,
yeah, Mike Gapes, of course.
Juliet Jakes, yes, Mike Gapes, obviously being
Just
a big
all
one.
of the coolest people did their cameo.
Tom F, one of our founding people. Yeah, so just like yeah, apologies if we forgot anyone there, but you know, loads of our friends basically, like big cool people, big with people with big cool around them. I haven't slept for about more than 24 hours.
Yeah,
Wow.
so I think we're wrapping it up then.
Yeah. We're also on Spotify now. If you missed it a couple of weeks ago, we're on Spotify. You can listen to all our podcasts, past and present, there. And Jack and Disso have put together some playlists as well, helping to categorize some of the episodes. If you've got into us more recently, that might help you find some good ones you might like further back.
Yeah. And remember, next time Chris Leslie says some fucking stupid right-wing bullshit, what you say to him is, "Who are the hard left, Chris?"
All right. With that all noted, I'm going to say good night. And if you enjoyed this, drop a follow.
Me.
Yeah, and then pay Jack. If you enjoyed this, catch me tomorrow from 6. It's the International Workers' Day special. I will be playing Workers and Resources Soviet Republic, and trying not to completely ruin the economy by sending everyone to the pub or something. Anyway, good night, everyone.
Good night. Subscribe to the RP Patreon.
Good night.